Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
Ian, good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 835 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Ukraine has launched some major attacks on Russia today, and we have all that news. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, as we have gotten massive news that Ukrainian forces have been able to push back the Russians and retake the town of Hlyboke and are currently fighting in the outskirts of Luhansk, north of Kharkiv, showing that the counteroffensive is starting to gain more momentum. We have also been able to get the major news that a huge ATACMS strike has occurred directly within the city of Luhansk within occupied Ukraine, striking Russian command and major repair facilities that are very important for Russian frontline efforts to continue to operate around the area of Bakhmut as well as Hlyboke and the Kremenna Forest. Not only that, but we also got additional major news that apparently the Russians may be trying a brand new kind of a camouflage tactic where they paint their MiGs pink. We'll be getting to that in a little bit, but beyond that, we also have been able to see that a brand new U.S. aircraft carrier is being shock tested today inside of, I believe, the Atlantic. And not only that, we also have additional news from St. Petersburg that the Russians are apparently trying to recruit the Taliban. You heard that right. The Taliban, part of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, into the Russian sphere, along with a whole load of other frontline news today that has occurred along the entirety of the front, including unbelievable showdowns today in between pretty much a peer-on-peer vehicle adversary in the area around Arkhangelsk. We got to see that a M2 Bradley went up against a BTR-82 and, of course, won. But we will be showing that footage a little bit later in the stream. We just have to make sure to try and get to all the breaking news. The biggest first, and as the stream goes on, we'll start getting more into the weeds on what's been happening so far today. But moving us into the area of Luhansk, we were able to see that Ukrainian ATACMS missiles were not only able to fly into the city, but were able to strike their target multiple times, completely overriding Russian air defense systems in the region and showing that the Russians' major supply hubs and major command centers are under direct threat from the Ukrainian attacks. We have several videos to show. First off, we got to see the repair base after it was hit by the ATACMS strike. By the way, from what we understand, this may have been a separate target in the area, but we can see that the damage has been pretty severe just from the single ATACMS strike.
It looks like that building is probably finished. I think that ATACMS finished it off.
Here in America, we would say that that building has been Detroited. But beyond that, we also got to see another view of the missile attack that occurred inside of Luhansk. We are not really entirely sure if the last video and this video are completely analogous to each other or showing the exact same thing that's going on. We're not entirely sure because the repair facility that we saw in the last video looks to have been in a different area than where this missile struck inside of Luhansk. And also in the next video, it looks like it may have been different. So the ATACMS may have hit several different targets around the area of Luhansk, but that information is a little bit unclear at the moment because this rocket attack is so fresh off the press that we really don't have exact details and information about the severity of the strike and also the variety of targets that were hit inside the area of Luhansk. But here's one of the videos of that ATACMS missile hitting right there.
Ух, ебать!
Oh, yeah, and then,
sounded like thunder going off in the distance. That was loud.
Oh, and it sounds even worse in this clip. This one was a lot more close. Also, by the way, at the beginning of this clip, the explosion of the ATACMS had already happened from what we understand. From what we are able to tell, this was an S-300 missile or an S-400 missile that attempted to intercept the ATACMS and ended up exploding because of a proximity fuse because it started to get incredibly close to the ground. So it actually exploded above the ATACMS impact site. But here's the clip.
Hi!
And that's the end of that clip. But from what we understand, a major Russian facility has been hit somewhere inside the city of Luhansk. We know that it's an incredibly major one, highly pertinent to logistical, command, or communication efforts, as in this area of occupied Ukraine, it is so far behind the lines, its nearest location, the front lines, being about 40 to 50 miles away, that this would be considered the deep or reserve area of the front lines, meaning that largely this area would be occupied by heavier Russian rocket artillery, Russian logistics, Russian command posts, and also Russian communication centers as well, to continue to speak with our frontline forces. Going off of this, we know that this base probably getting hit has a very severe impact on the Russians' higher level functioning within this area. While we'll see that the tactical battles on the battlefield continue to progress in the same way and shape that they have been in the past, their efforts to coordinate or communicate effectively and organize their efforts will be hindered due to the strike. We have been hearing rumors about what this facility may have been. I have heard two separate things. I've heard that it was a command post, and I've also heard that it was a major repair facility. We are not entirely sure which. Regardless of the one, considering that this is within the reserve or deep area of the front line, this does mean that it is so far behind the front that this most likely housed whatever facility it was, either critical components of the command infrastructure or critical components of the repair and logistical efforts. Repairs are actually a pretty big part of a supply or a logistic force's efforts in a war, considering that repairing vehicles is a never-ending task. Vehicles usually just sustain damage due to the wear and tear of operating around the front lines, and not only that, if any vehicles are surviving the hits that are being sustained on the front lines, they then have to be brought back to a rear line area and repaired, most likely inside of Luhansk. But beyond that, it does seem as though the Ukrainians are starting to massively use ATACMS missiles, far more than we've ever seen the Scalp EG or the Storm Shadow being used, and that's most likely for the reason that these are cheaper and more efficient to use overall. And for that reason, we are seeing that the Ukrainians are using the ATACMS missiles at much higher numbers than they have been in the past. But moving on from that major news, it is time for us to move on up into a little bit more interesting news inside of St. Petersburg, because we were able to see that today, it's a bit of a side note to remind you all of who the Russians are and what kind of people they try and have ally with them. A Russian representative at a expo in St. Petersburg had a Taliban delegation arrive. You can see them right here. And he said, "Thank God you are here," to the Taliban that arrived in St. Petersburg. Now, I don't know if that's offensive to the Taliban, considering that they believe in a totally different God, but beyond that, he did say that to them. So here's the clip. But that's the end of the clip.
That is just crazy that like Russia would try to like invite the Taliban like that. It's like just not too long ago, the Taliban was just a ragtag group of people that literally everybody was fighting pretty much. And now they're being invited like they're a legitimate country. It's just insane to see.
And it is absolutely insane to see. And what's even crazier is that this is once again another Russian propaganda effort to show that they're drawing countries in. And this is something that I always find so interesting about the Russian fabrication, that they have a lot of friends, is that Russia really does not have a lot of friends. Otherwise, they wouldn't be going to the Taliban. The Russians try and draw together a whole bunch of poor or insignificant countries. And when I say poor countries, I mean they are literally poor. I mean, if you look at them on an economic index, they're usually near the rock bottom. Afghanistan is especially one of them. If we were to put Afghanistan, let me just type in Afghanistan GDP. I wonder what it is. Oh, look. It's a nice $14 billion. $14 billion. Isn't that nice? I think we have a large amount of billionaires in America that are more wealthy than just the entire nation of Afghanistan put together. And it looks
I'm no expert on charts either, but that looks like it's going down the toilet like right now. Like look at that downward like graph right there. That's bad.
Man, I wonder what happened in between 1981 to 2002 that led to the GDP almost being the same. Does anyone have any idea of what that would have been? Answer in the chat if you have a good idea of why the GDP would have remained the same pretty much through that period of time, and also no data was collected through that period of time. I'm sure some people will know. But beyond that, it appears that after the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan, they had a nice economic skyrocketing there. I mean, they went from being the equivalent of some person who's been a little prevalent nowadays, to now they went up to about the level of $20 billion, and now they're around $14 billion. They're losing all their gains in just a few years. But beyond that, this country is incredibly poor. To put this into perspective, and let me make sure to put this into perspective as well, let's see, Ukrainian military budget. Now, let's go to that. So, Ukraine's military budget in 2023 is $64.8 billion, meaning that alone, the Ukrainians are spending about 3 times the amount that the nation of Afghanistan's economy was at its peak. Just to put that into perspective of how small an economy Afghanistan really is. So having Afghanistan on your side isn't really going to be bringing the Western world to its knees like the Russians would want people to think. Or if you had Turkmenistan or Uzbekistan or Tajikistan or Kyrgyzstan or Kazakhstan or Iran, well, China's the exception, or North Korea or Venezuela or Cuba or Syria or Azerbaijan, although they're certainly not going to be moving anytime soon in that direction, or any countries inside of South America or Central America, no matter how many of those you added, they're still insignificant countries due to their economic and military power. And while that is the case, the Russians still want to make it look like there are people out there who want to be friends with them, but they are sitting at the very end of the table at this point as far as the friends they're getting. But moving on from that and down into the area of good old Kursk, we were able to see that a FPV kamikaze drone of the Ukrainian forces ended up finding and destroying a Russian substation in the area. Check it out. This was pretty nice. Once again, another substation being destroyed, which will be impacting the Russian war efforts within this local area.
Fantastic work. I wonder what that hit, like a transformer or something. It looked like it kind of exploded.
Had to have been something like that. And the explosions are, like Matthew said, pretty large. And we see even more FPV drones coming on in. And that's the end of the clip. But of course, very nice to see that the Ukrainian forces were able once again to knock out another Russian substation, as we do understand that there is a small military buildup of Russian forces along this area of the border, possibly showing a further extension of the Vovchansk campaign that we've currently seen ongoing in Kharkiv for about a month at this point. Ukrainian efforts are currently attempting to destabilize Russian forces in this area, or possibly sow a decent amount of confusion or disarray, considering that some communications forces of the Russian Federation are currently having to tap into largely the civilian communication system. Not a really positive or good outlook, but that's the realistic Russian outlook at the moment. Meanwhile, moving on from that substation getting hit, it's now time for us to get on into the second major breaking news of the night, as the Ukrainian forces have been able to successfully counterattack from the outskirts of Lipsy, and they have now, as of right now, and I will be updating our map to show this, according to Ukrainian forces, Ukraine has retaken the town of Hlyboke. We have now been able to confirm, just about, I think it was 5 hours before this stream, that Ukrainian forces now control Hlyboke, and because they control the entire village of Hlyboke within this area, they now control the fields spanning all the way from the area of Krasny and all the way up to the Ukrainian frontier at Streletsya, meaning that this entire area of the front line will most likely recede over the next few days, as Russian forces will be rapidly retreating either towards Streletsya or Krasny to try and set up their next defensive line, and hope that the Ukrainians are not able to successfully advance once again through the open fields and towards Streletsya and Krasny, and remove pretty much the final holdouts of Russian armed forces that will be within this area of the front line. This is absolutely huge news, and not only that, we got simultaneous news that the Battle of Luhansk is currently underway as well, with Ukrainian forces right outside the village. We are expecting that this village may come under Ukrainian control within the next few days. We're not entirely sure at the moment, and we don't really have a lot of detail about how that battle is unfolding, but considering that Hlyboke is on the higher ground within the surrounding area, they may be able to provide some supporting fire in the form of light mortars to the Ukrainian forces that are attempting to advance on Luhansk, and hopefully break up or disrupt Russian forces in this area to try and push them out. Moving on into the video clips that we got from Hlyboke, we got to see some of the video clips today as the Ukrainians pushed back into the town. And here's the clip. And we're going to be muting that.
Wow, just a hell of, like, what is that, tracer fire or something?
Let's look at that. Yep, that is tracer. That is certainly tracer fire.
That's a lot. Just flying through the air like just a bunch of fireflies or something.
Oh yeah, you know what's actually interesting is because they're tracer rounds, you can actually see what ricochets look like, because this burst of rounds right here that goes through the town, let's see, right here. You can actually see them bounce off of the hill in behind the village, and you can actually see how much they slow after they ricochet off the ground. Right there. Take a look at that. Isn't that pretty cool?
That's pretty cool. It goes a pretty good distance for even a ricochet.
Oh yeah, it goes a huge distance. But not only that, we then got additional footage while they were retaking Hlyboke of a Ukrainian BTR-4, of course, a very famous Ukrainian-built infantry fighting vehicle that has been used since the beginning of the war in limited numbers. But we are starting to see that they are being presented in larger numbers on the front line, and we got to see one operating right here on the northern edge of Hlyboke, meaning that at this point, Ukrainian forces had largely already conducted an encirclement of the town and may have been destroying Russian forces in detail that were currently still inside of Hlyboke. We're going to be muting that music, but we see the BTR-4 lighting up this entire area of northern Hlyboke as it just drives by, facing no anti-tank fire either from further north towards Strelecha or from inside of Hlyboke itself, considering that's pretty much riding the gauntlet at that point.
Oh, it's a Detroit-style drive-by. Oh, no. Oh, no. Someone's going to get mad. I made fun of Detroit. Oh, no.
Oh, God. Man, we ain't getting that piggyback. But anyways, moving on from that, it is nice to see that they were able to retake Hlyboke. And meanwhile, near the area of Luhansk, we did get to see some Ukrainian drone hunters conducting anti-drone operations. And these aren't just any drone hunters. These are none other than Magyar's drone hunters. And so here's the clip.
Зазвичай хробачі пілоти на півдні таких нехтувань безпекою собі не дозволяють. Очевидно, на острови висаджують зовсім нетраханих. Звичайний Mavic 3 на одній акумі. Середня тривалість польоту близько 20 хвилин. Жім полетів. Нам вистачить 3 хвилини, щоб відрегулювати та відпрацювати цю ситуацію з цими новоявленими літунами хробачими. Спробуємо заїхати їм.
We see them pointing out the position that the Russian drone operators are in.
Уважні по прикметам самі розберуться. Поки в лоба на ціль рухається перший FPV-дрон від птахів, другий підбирається до тилу будівлі, з котрої працюють хробачі дрони. Ну та й в'йо. Так то виглядає в окуляри пілота.
We now see the drone coming on in and hitting dead onto his position.
Перешкоди не дають вам все побачити. Подивимося, бав, ззовні. Слідкуємо ззовні.
I like how Madyar is so used to all this stuff. He doesn't even change the tone of his voice. He's just like, it hit, it is.
Yeah, he doesn't even do the bada boom thing anymore. He's just like, oh, there he goes.
Psych.
Так, невдалий. Ми теж не завжди точно влучаємо. Щось тут трохи перекасайобило. Але 3 секундочки. Томаш!
Oh, he's actually
Yes.
Yes, блядь!
Вони за задумом мали прилетіти
Turn that house into a
синхронно,
smoker,
що
блядь.
не розрахуєш.
Aw, man, I would feel at home here.
4 секунди різниці, супер. Хробачня навіть не встигла оклигатися.
And that's the end
You
of
know,
that clip.
rumor has it that car antenna is off a 95 Civic. I've heard that from word on the street. I'm not sure though, but I'm pretty sure.
Man, that'd be a rare car antenna in Ukraine, man. No doubt at all, to be entirely honest. But moving on from that and over into the area near Bucha, we also got to see that Ukrainian armor has been moved into the area. Due to the terrain in this area, we do believe that Ukrainian armored forces would most likely have an advantage, especially around the Bucha Staritsa area, as while they would have to advance through a forested area, they still would have this small clearing in Bucha for the large part to be able to operate in and provide infantry support. Although it is still an incredibly short distance, it does give them a slight advantage over the Russians, who have to drive through the death funnel pretty much right here to get their armor into Bucha. But beyond that, we did get to see this T-72 of the 92nd Assault Brigade in the area. It's pretty cool because it has a large amount of anti-drone cages or cope cages on it. But not only that, they also put cope cages onto the turret cheeks, which is a very interesting addition, and I believe that they may have done this not to protect the actual tank, considering that the frontal turret armor is the strongest part of this specific variant of tank. I believe they may have done that to structurally make the T-72 look a little bit more like a Leopard 2. Notice how it has the same kind of turret profile that a Leopard 2A4 would have. Let me go get you all across reference for that. So let me go get a Leopard 2A4. And right here. So this is a Leopard 2A4. Notice the very flat turret cheeks. And notice how they put those anti-drone cages onto the turret right here. From the front, at a distance, this may look like a Leopard 2A4 instead of a T-72 if you're not really paying attention too well. Because beyond that, protecting the quartz composite armor of the T-72 is a pretty worthless affair because that armor is truly so thick, not really a lot would be punching through a T-72's turret. But beyond that, we did get to see them driving around. And also notice this. Notice how the side of the anti-drone cage is perfectly flat. It doesn't really round around the turret. It is more so flat like the profile of the side of a Leopard 2A4's turret, like you can see right here on the small model in 1/35th scale that you can get for 48 euros. But beyond that, it looks like they were trying to imitate a Leopard 2, or at least convince some people that it may be a Leopard 2. And it kind of looks a little bit like it. Like if you saw this thing from about a mile away, it may look like a Leopard 2. But still pretty interesting to see that they conducted those kinds of armor modifications, and really interesting to note that they also have a large amount of camo netting, as that is a large industry that has grown in Ukraine overnight, is trying to provide camo netting for multiple different kinds of Russian vehicles, Ukrainian vehicles and equipment systems. But with that, we have to move on into something that has been said today that some people have been talking about a little bit. Some people have been saying that the Russians may use nukes. The Russians may end up nuking Ukraine, and that's something that's always brought up by the YouTube channels that really love to clickbait, because clickbait is good bait. But Putin said today, actually, that tactical nuke strikes aren't necessary for a victory to be achieved in Ukraine. And some people are wondering, is Putin ruling out nuclear weapon usage in Ukraine? And some people are saying that yes, he's ruling it out. Some people are saying that it seems so, but he's probably lying about that. And others are saying that he's just bragging and saying that the conventional armed forces of Russia will be able to achieve the job instead of having to require tactical nuclear weapons, considering the failings of the Russian armed forces at this point. But a lot of people have been throwing in their 2 cents on this. And Matthew, what have people been thinking about this, and what are you thinking about Putin's statement today about not having to use nuclear weapons to achieve a decisive result in Ukraine?
So surprisingly, this poll is pretty much all over the place. It looks like 34% said no, Putin is not ruling out nukes, and he's simply bragging about the Russian military, while 28% said it seems like he's probably ruling it out, but he's also probably lying about it, and 28% said yes, Putin is completely ruling out nuclear weapons. And on this one, I would say personally, to me, it didn't sound like he was really ruling it out. He did sound like he was just bragging. He was basically saying there's no need to use nukes because the Russian military is going to steamroll Ukraine, which obviously that's not happening. And it's been, what, 2 years so far? 2.5 years, something like that? And no sign of Putin steamrolling anyone. In fact, Russia is actually hurting a hell of a lot more than the Ukrainians are hurting. So, I don't think he's ruling out the nukes, but I also don't think they're likely either. It's kind of still the same status quo, in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, Putin is most likely just, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, Matthew, why didn't you put up a 5th option? I'm just kidding. But I would have to say that what Putin is trying to do right here is make it sound as though nuclear escalation is not on the table, although it clearly has been for a while. I believe this is some of that famous Putin doublespeak that we just saw happen yesterday, where he threatened the West with war or threatened the West with Russian retaliation, and then said, we're not threatening anyone. I think this is some of that Russian doublespeak that they love to do. So while he is, of course, conducting nuclear escalation in Europe, he's also going to say at the exact same time that they're not. So I think he's talking out both sides of his mouth, because the only time that the guy isn't lying is when his mouth is shut. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And meanwhile, in the Vovchatsk area, one of the last clips we got was a drone attack, or a montage of drone attacks, conducted by the 8th SSO Regiment of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. And we can see that wolf with the belts on its waist, because that thing do be lifting. It needs that lifting belt. But we can see them hitting that recon tower. Dang, and hitting that outpost.
That was a fast shot.
Man, that was a good one. And they cooking that outpost, and now they're dropping bomblets onto the Russians. Ooh! Oh, bleh. I'm going to
Wait a minute, they're actually taking care of their wounded for once? I cannot believe this. Are you sure these are Russians?
Dude, these are Russians, man. I'm honestly as shocked as you are. I'm shook.
Shaken.
And stirred. But we can see here the drones continuing to hit Russian outposts. And that's the end of that clip, but still, really nice to see and wonderful to know that the 8th SSO was able to conduct such a successful operation in support of Ukrainian forces in this area and making sure to give the Ukrainians a frontline advantage when dealing with the Russian forces. From what we understand at the moment, Ukrainian offensive efforts appear to be fairly straightforward. With the Ukrainians attempting to retake Hlyboke and Luhansk, it appears that they are trying to regain the advantage from this area, or more so, the field of view required to make sure to provide a large amount of sustained fire on the Russian forces in the fields beyond Hlyboke and Luhansk, and to start pushing them back towards the border region. If Ukrainian forces are able to retake Hlyboke and Luhansk, the amount of firepower that they can directly levy and directly call in on Russian forces in this area will be significant, and we will most likely see that Russian forces will retreat towards Plina, Borisivka, and Streletsya, leaving them with a very, very small fringe along the Ukrainian frontier. The Ukrainians will, of course, then try to decisively conduct largely just frontal assaults until the Russians are pushed out, as there really will not be room at that point for the Ukrainians to conduct maneuver battles, as the Russians will be right on the border, meaning that Ukrainian options will be somewhat slimmed. Meanwhile, in the area of Buhrovatka and Vovchansk, while we did hear that the Ukrainian police and other armed forces inside the city were able to push Russian forces out to the meatpacking plant, we have not really seen a lot of offensive progress in this area at the moment. We are assuming that Ukrainian forces may still be attempting to stabilize the frontline conditions in this area and also continue to try and use their numbers correctly or locate their numbers correctly within this area before they begin to conduct offensive actions. Once again, due to the small area of this front line, there is not really a large area for major maneuvers to be conducted, maneuvers that would lead to a Russian encirclement or anything along those lines. Because of that, we will most likely assume that once again the Ukrainians will be conducting a majority of frontline assaults on the Russian positions, hoping to break them just by sheer strength. That's also why we've seen, according to public information, that the Ukrainians have moved such a large number of their armed forces into this area, giving them nearly a 5 or 6 to 1 advantage over the Russian forces, as this will be the offensive numbers or the offensive disposition needed to be able to conduct frontline assaults and have successful outcomes, considering that there really is no way to just outmaneuver your opponent and win on the battlefield in that form, which is usually in the modern world how most people try to win battles. There isn't really a lot of room for that considering the limited space that this battlefield envelops. But moving on from that little bit of news in the Vovchansk area, it is now time for us to take ourselves out into the area of the Northern Atlantic, where I put this clip today, because we got to hear that the U.S. Navy was conducting some shock trials near to an aircraft carrier. And let's see here. I want to know, one second, I want to see where in the world does it say what kind of aircraft carrier this is? Because I'll find it very weird if it was an old one. I'm assuming that it may be one of the new Gerald R. Ford class carriers that we are attempting to field here in the near future. But nevertheless, it doesn't really seem like we got a lot of information on that. Let's see here. But nevertheless, I'll still show you all the video because the video is fairly interesting to watch, and it's just something interesting to note. But here's what a shock test looks like. It also creates pretty much a small earthquake in the area. It has a magnitude of a 3.9, which is fairly interesting, is to make sure to check the integrity of the aircraft carrier's hull. But here's the clip. Dazed.
What's the explosive, by the way? Is it a nuke?
It's not a nuclear weapon. It's like 40... Let's see, a 40,000 pound explosive. That's what a 40,000 pound explosive looks like. Pretty freaking big.
The Navy said, we need to test our boat. They said, let's cause an earthquake.
I mean, that's insane. And so now we get, that is a Gerald R. Ford class aircraft carrier right there, because the conning tower is very far to the stern. So that is a Gerald R. Ford that's being tested here. And also, you can get an idea in this clip how close that explosion really was to the carrier. Because watch the shockwave. You can see the underwater shockwave reaches the hull of the vessel pretty quickly.
So, what exactly are they looking for? Like, are they trying to see if the boat's going to sink, or like, what's the point, really?
It's really to try and test the hull integrity, because of course an aircraft carrier in wartime may have some guided munitions, although this is absolutely insane. No one's dropping a 40,000-pound bomb near an aircraft carrier. There may be some guided munitions that end up slamming into the aircraft carrier, around the aircraft carrier, something along those lines. The attempt of this test is to ensure that hull integrity would be there even under the most strenuous of conditions, and that's why they end up blowing up a 40,000-pound bomb near the aircraft carrier, is to make sure that no stress fractures would be created in the hull from an explosion like this. So it's really more just overall a very massive stress test on the entire aircraft carrier at one time.
Well, damn, if it can withstand that literally right next to it like that, that's impressive. I honestly, me personally, I really don't understand it still, because I'm like, you know, what if it, obviously if you explode something next to it, it could cause it to like sink or something like that. So it's like, I guess they're going to see if it sinks early. I guess, I don't know. I guess there's a reason behind it.
Oh, there is a reason. It's to make sure that something like this wouldn't sink it. Because if it does sink, then they'll probably go back to the shipyard and say, we're not paying y'all because y'all's construction efforts were faulty. Because the aircraft carriers are built to have a certain kind of durability or strength to their hulls, and that is tested in instances like these before they actually go out to sea. Unlike other countries like Russia, from what we understand, they never tested the Kuznetsov on really a lot of things, and on top of that, the sea trials were not even really sea trials. It was more so just the ship's ready, go, and that's why the Kuznetsov has so many problems. So the United States decides to rigorously test every single aspect of everything that we feel. That's why everything ends up being so expensive as well, to make sure that it will be ready and able to operate under even the most extreme of circumstances, like something, in this instance, a 40,000-pound bomb blowing up near to the aircraft carrier.
This is like these guys that go out and buy those like brand new, like expensive trucks, like $100,000 trucks, and then they take them off road to the most like rugged, terrible track you can take it to like take it over rocks, and you're like, oh my god, man, it's like a brand new expensive truck. Why are you going to destroy it? It's like the same thing. The U.S. is like, let's take it out and see what it can do, and the taxpayers is like, oh my god, no, we're shivering, please. That's a lot of money.
But the aircraft carrier did survive. It got through the test A-OK, and it will be fielded here very soon. Here's a more up-close view of the explosion. Also, by the way, you can see the tug that was hauling the explosive in place. It's like a whole nautical mile in front of the bomb. Like, they were like, yeah, that thing will capsize if the bomb blows up near it, so let's keep it far away. Dang. And there's the view from near the aircraft carrier. They actually filmed a lot of this test. And you know what? We just got the number on that aircraft carrier. It is CVN 78. So let's go. That is actually the Gerald R. Ford as it was being tested. So very interesting. Very interesting indeed. But that's the end of that clip. Just really neat to see overall. But getting back to the Ukraine war news, I just want to show some I saw today. That was pretty cool. We're now going to be moving on into our location unknowns. And starting off with our first clip, we got to see some brand new Ukrainian-made bombs. These bombs are brand new. This one is called the MOB, the MOB L68K BR1. This is some kind of a new Ukrainian-made drone bomb used by the Baba Yaga. This one did not detonate, and the Russians ended up taking a picture of it, but it's starting to show that the Ukrainians are not only able to make their own drones, they're also able to now make their own munitions to operate their drones with. This is a massive leap forward technologically, as while we have seen that the Ukrainians have been able to make improvised bombs for their drone forces, they are now appearing to be able to make industrialized numbers of mass-produced larger drone bombs to be specifically used for the drone forces. That is something that will be incredibly interesting and something that we'll need to observe and note, because as the Ukrainians start to flesh out this ability, we'll start to see a wider variety of munitions being used. They may make anti-tank grenades. They'll also make anti-personnel grenades like these, and many other different kinds of explosives that can conduct different kinds of missions against Russian forces. But still, really interesting to see. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see a picture of a Ukrainian Su-27 taking off in that good old beautiful summer camouflage pattern. This one is apparently carrying 2 guided bombs provided by the United States, and hopefully it has luck on its mission. It's really cool to see that U.S. provided bombs continue to make their ways onto the pylons of Ukrainian aircraft, and soon U.S. provided and Western provided weapons will be making their way onto Western provided pylons on Western provided jets, which will be very cool to see, and that should be happening here very close to the near future. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to hear that apparently the United States is increasing its deployment, or considering the increase of the deployment of tactical nuclear weapons. The United States may have to increase its deployment of strategic nuclear weapons amid growing threats from China, Russia, and other adversaries, according to a White House official stated today. This is showing that the United States may be possibly working on a form of deterrent, or at least a form of low-level counter coercion against Chinese and Russian forces as they attempt to try and achieve national ambitions. The Russians by retaking really the most of Eastern Europe, and the Chinese by trying to retake Taiwan and a couple of other smaller islands within the South China Sea and also within the East China Sea as well. But nevertheless, showing that tensions are rising a little bit. And some people have been saying that this is something that the United States should do, and some people are saying that it's something that the United States should not do. It seems just simply escalatory and not a good move. But nevertheless, I would have to say that in my opinion, I believe that this certainly is a good move, as it is once again showing that the United States is more than willing to take action, serious actual action, to provide the implication that actions taken against the Western sphere's best interests will be met with reprisal, possibly severe reprisal. And it is that implication alone that usually leads other sides to back down, hoping to not see whether we are serious about this or not. But moving on from that little bit of news from the Kyiv Independent, it's now time for us to move on into the Russian casualty report of the past 24 hours. And good googly moogly, that thing is juicy.
8 Bobcats. I love to see it, man. I love to see it. And also, the other losses are insane as well today. Also, I like to see that one warship and boat like statistic on there. That's kind of rare to see these days, but they've got it.
But beyond that, 1,080 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed. 20 armored personnel carriers were knocked out, along with 56 supply trucks, 6 main battle tanks, 64 artillery pieces, 40 drones, 2 anti-aircraft missile warfare systems, and 8 Bobcat skid steers and the single tugboat. Overall, it was a great day. Who can argue, Jack? But beyond that, I gotta say, we love to see this kind of stuff. It is showing that the Russians are still having an unfun time in Ukraine and eventually will get pushed out, which we can just be incredibly happy about. Can we get an amen? But anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little casualty report, and now it's time for us to move on into the remainder of our frontline news throughout the area of the northern regions of Kharkiv, all the way down into Kherson, and then a little bit of news from Sevastopol about the pink MiGs, which are a little interesting to look at, and then we'll be moving up to Kyiv for the air defense report and the speech from Zelenskyy. But before we get to all of that, there is a little bit of a big question that some people have been asking. As Zelenskyy said today, that a peace deal with the Russians would allow Russia to regroup before attacking again. And a lot of people have thrown in their thoughts. Some people are saying that a true peace deal is only a deception and meant to buy the Russians more time before they begin the war again. Some people are saying that it depends on the terms. Some people are saying that a false peace deal equals real peace. And some people are a little bit unsure and undecided. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about it as well?
So it looks like 82%, the overwhelming majority, said that a peace deal by Russia would mean deception almost certainly, while 10% said it would depend completely on the terms, and 4% said that that's false because a peace deal would mean real peace with Russia. And on this one, I would say it doesn't really matter what the terms are, because whatever the terms are, Russia is almost certain to violate them, because Putin is not playing fair whatsoever. He's violating pretty much every war convention out there, and he's committing war crimes left and right. And also, he lies about everything as well. So to think he's going to be honest and fair during a negotiation, that is simply false. So I'm with Zelenskyy. I think that would allow Russia to regroup, and then Russia would simply attack again, and then they would have all the forces they need to attack this time, and they'd be in a much better position to actually hurt Ukraine this time. So I would say do not do that. And also, to be honest, the upcoming peace conference that Zelenskyy is setting up it's honestly kind of pointless in my opinion because Russia doesn't even really want to really talk peace. Russia keeps saying, we're going to talk peace, but we're going to keep fighting in Ukraine. It's like, that's not really negotiating. That's just, coming there on bad faith. And to me, I don't see any signs of peace in the future. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, also, Matthew, have you noticed, like, I'm just saying this tonight, every single person, I'm going to ban that one right there, every single person that's come in tonight that is a bot has, like, Sharia law in their username. Like, have you noticed that as, like, a trend? I've seen, like, 7 of those tonight.
I've noticed it on a few of them, yeah.
I was like, what the hell is this? I was like, this is a new wave of bots. We got the Taliban here tonight. But anyways, moving on from that and on into this little question here, I would say that a peace deal would mean deception in the long run, without a doubt. Going off of what we already know about the Russian Federation, they have been using peace treaties in the past to buy them time to regroup, rearm, and reorganize their efforts to then go at it again. That was true in the Chechen Wars, and that was also true with the Donbass conflict in 2014, which then led to the Minsk Agreement, which was then violated with the invasion of Ukraine in 2022. So going off of that, I would have to say that, in my opinion, a peace deal in the current day would result in a deception, giving the Russians time to regroup and rearm. If we were to see an actual peace treaty, which would be a pretty big thing, that would probably be a war ender. But a peace deal, just trying to create a ceasefire with the current conditions in place, would not be beneficial for Ukraine in any way, shape, or form going forward. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And Matthew, I understand that we got a couple of questions. And Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we've got some juicy questions tonight. While I'll try to keep an eye on these bots, which are absolutely flooding the chat tonight. It's crazy. I guess Putin's restarted the bot farms in the midst of his losses. But anyways, jumping into our first one here, we have a $20 donation from Monkey Madness, a longtime channel legend. And thank you very much, Monkey, for the support. He said, "Slav Ukraine, and long live the LSA, and a big shout out to Peggy. She's awesome."
And thank you so much for the support, Monkey Madness, and a huge shout out to Peggy. Peggy is awesome. And I gotta thank you so much once again for being here with us forever, Monkey Madness. And thank you so much for just really enjoying the Lee Spring Army, the amazing community that we have here that's a part of this channel. And also, thank you so much for being a massive supporter of Ukraine and Western interests around the entirety of the world. This channel isn't just a pro-Ukraine channel. It's largely moved into being a pro-Western channel as a whole, as it was kind of meant to be in its origins way back in late 2021 before it was ever popular. But beyond that, we have always wanted to make sure to bring light and attention to all of the struggles and efforts going on around the world, both militarily and economically, to try and bring about a successful Western sphere and also contain and isolate other spheres of influence from growing, like the Chinese and the Russians. And I gotta thank you so much once again for enjoying this channel greatly, helping this channel to keep on running, and helping our channel to be possible, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, Monkey Madness. And thank you for being an old guard as well, being here for about 830 days at least at this point. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Panama Floyd, who is another longtime channel legend. Panama has been around for ages, and he puts in a $20 donation. And yes, two chairs. And Panama says, "Enforcer Matt, don't diss those Tamiya 135 kits, and in reference to the early Leopard, they are jewels. And I have been since I was a kid in the 70s, and I built their F1 car models too, and take one from the chat." And honestly, I'm not dissing those Tamiya models. I think they're pretty cool. Me personally, I don't have the patience to build them. They're a little bit too complicated for me, honestly, but they're super cool. If someone wants to build some for me, that would be great. I can give you the kit and you can build it. I know some people are going to be like, well, that takes away the whole point of the kit. Well, guess what? I want to put it in the model case, but I don't want to sit down and figure out how to like glue it all together and all that stuff. But anyways, Enforcer, what say you?
Now, I'll say this, Panama Floyd. I ain't dissing Tamiya, because back in the day when I built models, Tamiya was the thing. Like, Matthew can tell you, I actually built one that was so well that it actually got into the official Tamiya company's semifinals, and it's on their website. I forgot what it was, but it was, when it was, but it was in the summer, I think, of 2016 or 2017. I built a 1/35th scale M41 A1 Walker Bulldog light tank of the U.S. Army, and put it into the championship or tournament or whatever, and they actually got into the semifinals. I was a pretty good model builder. It's just that over time I ended up getting a little bit too busy to really do it because it takes a lot of time to sit down and do this stuff. But let's look at their website really quickly because I actually saw they may have something really cool here in the present day. So it looks like they have a whole bunch of World War II stuff, a staple. They also have the Type 10, which is really cool. I love the Type 10 as a main battle tank design.
Dang, wait a minute, $82. Since when have they been that expensive?
Dude, they've been that expensive forever, man. Like, they have always been expensive. Let's see, they have an M1A1, they have a Tiger II, a Yag Panther, Pershing, a Yag Tiger. I actually got this one, I just never made it. It's still in this kit box. A Gepard. Nice. Love the Gepard. Also, it looks like they have a IS-2, but it actually has a metal barrel on it. That's actually really neat. But what else do they have? Because there was something really cool I saw on their main page, but I wanted to make sure to find it with y'all because I saw something that was really cool, and I was like, no, freaking away. So let's see if the next page loads. So I'm going to scroll through this a little bit quicker. By the way, that assistance team right there is pretty freaking cool as well. But we are looking for something very specific. Here's a Russian T-62, if anyone wanted to roleplay the Russians in the modern day. They have a Leopard 2 A7V, or A5. And let's see here. Oh, man, dude, I saw it, and I was like, I gotta find it normally. Like, I can't just, like, go straight to the main page. I gotta find it with y'all. So I'm gonna keep going until we find it, because y'all will be like, no freaking way! So, and I'll be like, yes way! Here's an M1A2. Still not finding it yet. It'll be around here somewhere, though. It will. Oh, there's the M41 Walker Bulldog kit that I built that got into the semifinals. It actually looked a lot like that one that they're selling right there. But moving on from that, and when I mean a lot like that, the quality was very similar. But I'm trying to find this freaking model. Y'all, hang on. Like, let me see here. I gotta find this thing because when y'all see it, y'all be like, no way that they're making a. There it is. There it is! It's an M1A1 Abrams model, but it's the Ukrainian variant with the white crosses on it and everything.
That's pretty cool. I like that. That's pretty authentic. But you had to paint the whole thing, right? Like the whole thing from scratch you had to paint.
Of course, Matthew. Of course.
Oh. The stickers, though, that makes it a little bit easier, but you still got to figure out how to paint it.
Man, that is still incredibly cool, though. Look at that. Like, M1A1 Abrams tank, Ukraine. I mean, that is really cool. And let's see here. In January 2023, the U.S. announced it would send around 30 M1A1s to Ukraine. This limited edition assembly kit release comes with all new box art and decals. So this is a limited edition run that they're doing actually for the M1A1 Abrams tank that was sent to Ukraine. I just wish that they had waited a little. Oh, look, they have a Leopard 2 A6 that is Ukrainian as well. How neat! That is really cool. So. Yeah, honestly, it looks like their normal kits for the M1A1 and the Leopard 2, because I have both of them, I just never built them. But they just put the white crosses and Ukrainian flags in it as water slide decals. But that is still incredibly cool, and I gotta say that is wonderful to know that they did something like this. Maybe I'll try and get one just for the collector's value of it, because it's just really neat to look at and really cool to see the little white crosses on it and everything. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, because I'm not dissing on Tamiya. Tamiya is the real OG of that entire model building world, in my opinion. They always had the highest quality models, the highest quality manuals, and a whole bunch of other stuff involved as well. Their paints that they provide for the airbrushes are really good too. So overall, I don't dislike Tamiya. I love Tamiya. So I'm not dissing on them. Where did you get that from, Panama Fleet? Two chairs. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope I was able to add my 2 bits into why Tamiya is great and why we ought to make Tamiya incredible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the Frontline news.
All right, and the last one of the segment is going to go to NDL, who's also a longtime channel legend from Texas. And he puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Andy, for that support. He said, how would a war between even NATO and Russia unfold? And is Poland the central aggressor? And who is the point of NATO's spear?
That is a good question, Andy L. And so I want to make sure that I'm hearing this correctly, Matthew. Andy L is asking, what would a hypothetical war look like in between Russia and NATO if NATO was the aggressor and specifically Poland was the initial aggressor?
Yeah, he's basically saying how would the war between NATO and Russia look? And he's also saying, would Poland be the central aggressor or would it be someone else?
Poland would not be the central aggressor, but they would be the bulk of the primary power that was levied against the Russians at the initial phase of the conflict. U.S. forces would most likely end up making up a large part of the combat power that would be in Eastern Europe at any given point, but that would be a little bit later on in the conflict. Most likely a month later, U.S. forces would be there in such a large number that they'd either make up the majority of forces there, or they would actually make up the simple majority, meaning over 51%. Poland, however, would be the first one to really respond, considering that they are directly along the border area. And not only that, the Baltic states, while having armed forces, they are fairly small armed forces. Poland would pretty much be responsible for creating a defensive area around Poland, specifically looking at Kaliningrad and Belarus, and then possibly also trying to screen or conduct cover operations for defenses in the area of the Baltics. So going off of that, Poland would not be the initial spear. They would more so be the initial bulwark of the defense before the majority of European forces could move into this area and then begin a counterattack. If we're saying that a war started in between NATO and Russia, considering that NATO is specifically a defensive alliance, that means that Russia would have had to have started this conflict for the entirety of NATO to respond in this form. So going off of that assumption, we would know that the Polish would initially be in a defensive position. The entirety of NATO would actually be in a defensive position at that point, although we overpower them. And a lot of people may or may not know this, but just because we overpower the Russians on paper does not mean that we would overpower them once a war began. Like, day one, war begins, we beat them and push them back. That's not how it would happen. They would actually have the upper hand advantage for the first week or two of the conflict, and those would be some of the most crucial times for the Russians, at least at that moment. Beyond that point, everything would be up in the wind. They wouldn't really be able to do that much. But in the first week or two, they could actually possibly close off the Suwalki Gap and maybe even capture a large part of the Balkans or push most armed forces into a portside city. Like in Estonia, they most likely end up pushing Estonian forces into the area of Parnu. Or for Latvia, it may be Riga. And for Lithuania, it may be Klaipėda, although Russian forces could race forward and cut off that port access, meaning that Lithuanian forces would also be pushed either through the Suwalki Gap and into Poland, or further north and up into Latvia. These defensive rings would largely exist until NATO reinforcements made it into the area, and counterattacks could be conducted either through the Suwalki Gap to break Russian control over the Baltics, or from the holding areas, almost like a battle of Busan, which is a major city in South Korea, which I'll show you all down here. Here is Busan. This was the final holdout of Korean forces in the Korean War, as the South Koreans had actually been pushed down into this one city. That's all they had. And U.S. forces started to enter the city of Busan in incredibly large numbers, and then that's when we started to conduct counterattacks that would then end up pushing out of Busan and start pushing the North Koreans back. That was how the initial part of the Korean War went. And we could assume that some of the battles in the Baltics would go quite similarly. But it would be a little bit difficult. I'm not going to lie. The Baltic situation is actually a pretty tough one. Due to the fact there isn't a large amount of standing Western forces in the Baltics, there also isn't a large standing force in any of the Baltic states. The defense of the Baltics would actually be a pretty difficult thing to pull off long term. I would have to say that NATO planning would most likely lead the Baltics to fall, at least initially. They would then be retaken in subsequent counterattacks, because it would be really hard to defend them or create any kind of usable, a workable logistics chain, considering that the Suwalki Gap would be directly under threat the entire time from artillery fire or from direct capture by the Russians and the Belarusians. So I don't really know how the Baltics would unfold. I do know that the bulwark of NATO's defenses would be in Poland, however, and we would have to see how the Baltics turned out in the end. I have a feeling, though, considering that the Baltics are a very important gateway to St. Petersburg, considering that the border of Estonia is only 50 miles away from the city, that Western forces would most likely ensure that the Baltics never completely fell. They most likely would be pushed back into the major cities on the coastline in the initial first week or two, until Western forces were able to arrive in much larger numbers into the area and start to conduct counterattacks. Also, another thing, and I'm seeing, let's see, some people saying that's not true. Please tell me how. Because you got to remember, if the Russians were beginning a conflict, we are assuming a couple of things that would be ideal for the Russians. One, they started the war with a complete element of surprise. Two, they actually have the armed forces to conduct this war. And three, they somehow have the backing to sustain this conflict. We would have to assume that in this hypothetical scenario, all three of those things are secured, throwing the war in Ukraine completely out the window. We're just acting like that war ended, or it has really not that much impact on the Russian Federation's armed forces. And we're talking about the worst case scenario that would happen for the West. In that kind of an instance, I think that most of the Baltics would end up being taken by the Russian Federation in the initial opening phases, but we would most likely retake the Baltics after a short counterattack phase, either through Poland or through the Baltics themselves. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And also I see some people saying, no, they wouldn't be able to do that. No, like, they would. Like, I hate to say it. Like, I will say the Russians suck as an armed force, but when you start a conflict as the aggressor and you have the element of surprise, you are able to achieve things that would otherwise be impossible throughout any other phase of that war. Look at Germany. Germany was able to capture France, and they were able to capture Poland by the element of surprise. Every other time where the element of surprise had been lost, either in the Battle of Britain, which was a subsequent battle to the Battle of France, or Operation Barbarossa, an invasion of the Soviet Union, which the Soviets had at least a little bit of a tipping off that the Germans were planning on heading towards them in the future, both of those ended up failing because the Germans didn't really have the necessary element of surprise to really shock their opponents and completely destroy them because of a surprise attack. Same with the Japanese. When the Japanese started to attack Allied forces in the Pacific, including the British, the French, as well as the United States, they were able to do things that they never were able to do throughout the rest of the war. One of them was take the entirety of the Philippines. Like, the Philippines was a U.S. territory, and if we were to say that the Philippines was a U.S. state, Philippines land mass. Let me go pull that up. Let's see. The Philippines has a total area of 300,000 square kilometers. So U.S. states by size kilometers. Let's pull that up. So let's see here. Let me go and in size order. So California, interesting enough, or let me see here. Let me put this miles to kilometers because I want to put this into perspective of how big Japanese gains were in the Philippines. So let me put in 145,000. So that's actually way smaller. So let's see here. Let me try and find another state. 155. 55. Dang. Philippines is actually freaking massive, man. I never even realized how big the Philippines are. So
Bigger than California?
way bigger than California.
Wow.
According to just landmass, and that includes all of their islands and everything. So, let's see. The Philippines consists of 7,641 islands with a total area amongst all of these islands of 300,000 square kilometers. So I'm trying to convert miles, square miles. Well, actually, hang on, correction. Can we get square miles? Square miles. 1 second. Square miles to square kilometers. Let me go get that. So there we go. So 1 square mile. Now let me put this back in. 145,000. Okay, so actually, the Philippines is equivalent to the size of the state of Montana. So it is an incredibly large area. I mean, it's huge. And the Japanese largely took it within just the first few opening months of World War II. And then it was only retaken by U.S. forces in 1944 and 1945, and not even in its entirety then. So going off of that, y'all can kind of get the idea of how an element of surprise can give you the overwhelming advantage in most combat scenarios. So going off of that, that's what I would believe the beginning of a conflict would look like, but largely you would be seeing that the majority of your forces would end up, the bulk of your forces would end up coming from countries like France, Poland, the United Kingdom, maybe Germany, and then also the United States in the largest numbers, and then that's when you would see that the counterattack would occur. The spearhead would largely be the United States, considering that we are the largest military power of the entire alliance, and not only that, a U.S. commander would most likely be in charge of the defensive and then counteroffensive campaign. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, but a lot of people have actually been talking about this. before we move on, I think, to our last question of the segment, a lot of people are wondering, would the Baltic states fall if Putin was to decide to invade NATO countries? And it seems as though a lot of people are not necessarily a big believer in that. A lot of people are believing that NATO would rapidly deploy forces and be able to stop that completely, while some people are saying that Russia doesn't have enough forces, and some people are saying that Putin would take those very quickly. And so, Matthew, what are people saying about that, and what are you thinking about that?
So about 48% of the audience said no, Putin would not take those quickly because NATO would deploy rapid forces, while 29% said no, Russia simply doesn't have enough forces to even invade the Baltics, and 17% said yes, Putin would take the Baltics very quick. And for me, I would say I'm probably with the 49%. NATO has been preparing contingency plans in case Putin were to do the crazy maneuver of trying to take the Baltics. We do have rapid forces and units in place to actually go there very quickly, and they're U.S. forces and also coalition forces that would start fighting in the Baltics to get the Russians out of there. I think that would pretty much hold the Russians off because I don't think the Russians really have enough forces to even try to invade those countries. And I do agree with the enforcer. Those countries have small standing militaries. They're not like powerhouses or anything like that, but they could hold off the Russians long enough for those rapid forces to get there and then push the Russians back out. And obviously, from that point forward, Russia would be in some very bad shape because now they've basically gone to war with NATO, and NATO would be exacting some revenge on them for that act. But enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that given the current scenario with the war in Ukraine going on and most combat forces of the Russians being involved down there, the Baltics themselves would actually hold off incredibly well against any Russian invasion force that would pop up. But the scenario that I was talking about a moment ago is going off of perfect ideals for the Russians. Whenever talking about military scenarios, it is usually not best practice to say our foe is as weakened as possible. It's usually the best case scenario to say that they are as strong as they possibly could and everything's in their favor, to get an idea of how badly things really could go. And a lot of people are like, well, that doesn't make any sense. It does make a lot of sense. Like, I'm going to have to quickly shoot that down because I know a lot of people are going to say, that makes no sense. It says pro-Russian. Oh my God. No, it's not pro-Russian. This is what America does with the Chinese. Like, when we say, like, well, when the army says, and, you know, in the book I had to read, they said, what would happen if the Chinese were in this kind of a combat scenario? In every single scenario, they would say, let's assume that everything is in their favor. This is how it would go. To get an idea of how well they could actually perform. That's how you do these kinds of analysis. And going off of that, we're saying that the Russians are no longer in Ukraine, their armed forces have somehow recovered from the losses, and we were talking about just a peer-on-peer conflict with NATO and Russia. That's all we're talking about. We're not adding in the factors with Ukraine, most of their combat forces being tied up there, the economic quagmire they're currently involved in, whether they could even afford a war like that. We're not talking about any of that. We're saying that all of the elements are in their favor, and therefore this invasion will go forward, or this attack on NATO will go forward. And going off of that, I would say that they would most likely end up capturing the Baltics in that kind of a scenario, although it would be retaken in subsequent counterattacks by combined Western forces. But in the current scenario that we find ourselves in right now, I would say that the Baltics would hold incredibly well. We already know that most combat forces are already tied up in Ukraine, and considering that there probably is a few, maybe a brigade or several combat brigades that are currently not in frontline fighting, but those are probably some of the best, well, not the best, the worst that you would see in the Russian Federation. And going off of that, and considering that while the Baltic states' militaries are quite small, they are high quality. And also, from what I understand, mostly contract soldiers, although some of the Baltic states still have conscript forces. But beyond that, they would most likely bode well against those forces, and then NATO would be able to further resupply. But that is all complicated if the Russians took the Suwalki Gap. If they did that, we're not able to rapidly move forces in through land. We would either have to break through the Suwalki Gap and get forces in there, or we would have to transport them by ship or by plane. And we do not know how usable the airspace would be in that area at that time. And on top of that, we also do not know how safe the Baltic Sea would be at that moment either, which could end up greatly complicating the issue of reinforcing and supporting forces inside the Baltic region. So I hope that all addresses that well, but in the current state, there's no way in hell that Russia would even be able to take the Baltics. But if everything was in their favor, they would probably be able to take the Baltics if that war was to unfold with those kinds of conditions in place. But with that, I hope that does.
I personally don't ever think that Putin will actually pull the trigger on that, because he knows that if he did that, in my opinion, it would be pretty much over for Russia, because we wouldn't just let Russia invade the Baltics, push them back out, and let that be the end of it. I don't think that would be the end of it. I think there'd be a lot more repercussions for that, and I think Putin knows it as well. So unless he's prepared to start nuking the entire world over it, he's probably not going to do it.
Oh, I would agree with that, and it's an interesting question though, Andy L. And I would have to thank you so much for the support, and I hope I was able to answer that well. And also, we got a lot of answers from the audience on that and what their opinions were. But still, the chances of something like that ever happening are incredibly small, because even if they did end up taking the Baltics, that still would not stop them from the steamrolling that would be coming as a result of that. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news.
And believe it or not, that was the last one in the
What?
segment. Andy L was the third. We have Monkey Madness, Penimal Floyd, and Andy L.
No way. Oh my God. I'm going
It's
crazy.
the last one.
But anyways, moving on from that and into the northeastern area of the Kharkiv front, we were able to see a Russian APC getting hit. Check it out. And we see right here, oh! That thing got schmecked. Folks are hopping off, running away. Oh, it's bad. It's real bad. Oh, baby. Oh, man, I'm telling you. I don't know. That was like a mix of Elvis and Rodney Dangerfield right there. But there goes the BMP, a critical ammo detonation. And with that, that's the end of the clip.
Deep state.
And the friggin' deep state. But moving on from that and into the area around Solomon, we also got to see a Russian soldier filming cluster rounds landing incredibly close to him. Здравствуйте.
Це підери кричать.
Как дела, блядь? О, блядь. О, блядь!
Whoa.
And that's the end of that clip, but that was pretty close. A little bit too close for comfort. But moving on from that, and down into the area of Bakhmut, while there wasn't really a lot of frontline advances in this area, we did get to see an M2 Browning operating in the area, a part of the Foreign Legion. Oh, and they got that copyright. But we can see them whipping out the deuce. Look at that little feller.
Whipping out the deuce. That's a term that only sounds good in a military context.
I don't even know how in the world you'd use that in another context, but yeah. Man, did you just turn into a dog right there? You went.
Yeah.
But when you see,
Man, I was thinking about how it could be used in a different context, and that made my whole like laugh change. I turned from turned to oh god.
Oh man. One thing that y'all will always remember is my laugh, because it goes or something like that. Sounds like a little machine gun. Man, I sit there, I start laughing, I'm mowing down squads of Krauts running across no man's land in World War I. I'm going, but anyways, we can see them also doing the same thing in this clip. Wow, look at that. Laying down that heat.
He's got plenty of ammo.
It's $5 a shot, and that tripod is moving all over the place.
The sound of monies.
You see them continuing to fire.
I just like look vaguely reminiscent to Vietnam, like with the like shrubbery and vegetation around here.
Oh man, let me think. They're in the trees. Looks like the 50 cal may have jammed here. They're trying to fix that. It's a bit of a problem, and it's back to work. It's a machine gun. But we can now see them wandering around and firing some rifles at a drone, and now walking through the village.
Super Creech said, a shrubbery. Yes, it's a shrubbery. It's vegetation.
Shrubbery.
It's plant life.
Hi guys, Enforcer here. Top bush.
Top shrubbery.
Top shrubbery. When you see this person smoking a ciggy, as they get jiggy with it, and we can now see them on the move again. And getting into the back of the Max Pro.
Yeah, the M-Ramp. Look at that. Very nice.
Hi guys, Enforcer here. Top M-Ramp. But anyways, moving on from that and on into our next clip out of the area of Bakhmut, we were also able to move on down into the area of Ultratine. And we got to see ourselves a little treat today. I'm glad I stayed up for this. This is a treat. This is a BTR-82, a Russian 8-wheeled armored personnel carrier. Let me go get y'all a picture of one, so that way y'all can really realize what the BTR-82 looks like. This is the BTR-82. It is an 8-wheeled BTR series armored personnel carrier that was later modified based off its original platform, this being the original platform for the BTR. It had that small turret that housed a machine gun. In later modernizations, they actually equipped the BTR-82 with a 30mm autocannon that is capable of conducting about 90mm of penetration on rolled homogeneous steel. It's a fairly packy gun. I mean, it can actually cause some pretty considerable damage to infantry fighting vehicles and armored personnel carriers of any type around the world, whether it be Chinese, American, European. This will cause a decent amount of damage. However, tanks it will be completely outgunned with. Nevertheless, this thing is largely a competitor in terms of its firepower to the M2 Bradley that has been provided to Ukraine, which I'll also be getting up on screen, pictured right here. Right here! Wait a minute, this is actually like some kind of a 3D model. We want a better one. There we go. And this is the M2 Bradley. This is what we provided to Ukraine. Now, the big difference in between the BTR-82 and the M2 Bradley is the ergonomics of the vehicle, the ease of repair, and not only that, the advanced optical systems and sight systems that are provided to the crew members operating these weapons. The Russians are at an extreme disadvantage in this scenario, as this BTR-82 has practically no advanced optics or imagery systems at all, while the M2 Bradley is kitted to the nines with advanced imagery systems, thermal sights, and any other kind of sight you could imagine on a vehicle. And so it appears that it gave it the ultimate advantage when facing down this BTR-82 today, because the Bradley shredded this thing on film. And we got two clips of it. We got the shorter one, and then we got the longer one. And we're going to be showing both of them. So here's the first clip showing the BTR-82 racing down the road. And here comes the chop shop right there where you see the first rounds hitting. And now this thing is being shredded by Bradley fire. And it's going out of control. Oh my God.
This is the Russians?
Yeah, this is the Russians, man, and they're trying to fire back as guys are falling
man, they
off.
Lost it. Damn, that is Tony, man. He literally had his foot on the accelerator. He's not letting up. Let's see that again. Like, I want to see that again.
We
man.
got a longer version, man. Oh, you got an even better one right here. This is from the 47th Brigade. So there's our BTR-82 firing as it advances. It's about to be lit up by that Bradley. So here it comes. It's going to enter this opening. And here it goes. It starts getting ripped up right here. And we can see them freaking out. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
And there's our Bradley right there.
Oh crap. That guy was losing his mind.
And
they're losing everything. They're losing the cooler. They're losing the guys, the beers, the vodka.
Oh my goodness. And we can see it rolling to a stop in this thicket of trees as it was knocked out. But I also want to show you this, Matthew. Watch this. This is what's even crazier, man. They drove past the Bradley. Like, they freaked out so badly, it doesn't even look like they were firing at the Bradley. It looks like they were firing past the Bradley. So, let's watch this again. So, it starts getting hit from the front, by the way. And the BTR is freaking out. It's firing as it's bouncing along the road. Here's our Bradley. Here's our hero. And it just, look, it's firing past the Bradley. I don't even think it shot the Bradley at any point in this.
That is crazy.
And then it just kept on going out of control. Oh my Lord, man.
Oh, look, it's pulling around there smoking. It was, I was so tired. Instead of pulling around there, just dying, smoking.
Haven't seen anything like that in a long time, dude. I think what was better though was like look at its speed right here. You know, it's going at a pretty okay speed, but it's not really breakneck. And then it gets hit, and the driver's like, "Oh shit!" and then starts flooring it off road.
Man, it was like a boat going over some big waves or something. The way it was smashing into those like hills it was hitting. It's like I've never seen a land vehicle like act like a boat like that.
Dude, you can start playing that banjo music, man, like Cripple Creek or something like that. As this thing is going right here, you know, it's just driving down the road, and then it starts getting hit, and you hear. It's just like freaking out, man. Look. That thing was totally not hitting that Bradley the entire time. And look at that gun bouncing, dude. Look, as it's firing, there are no hits on that Bradley. Everything is landing way back here down the street.
Bro hit the high seas with this one.
Wait a minute, you know what's better, Matthew? Is that even after they passed the Bradley, like they know they passed it, look at the gunner. Watch him. Look, wait a minute. Hang on. Pop, pop. He's still shooting at something. I don't know what it was, but anyways, that's the end of that clip.
That one guy though jumped off the BTR like a person in Detroit doing a drive-by. They don't want to get caught up with the police, so they jump out of the vehicle and roll.
Man, they didn't want no smoke. But with that, we are now going to be moving on down the way out of the area of Avdiivka and down towards Marinka, where we also got to see a failed Russian assault today. And someone said, "You're laughing about war footage. People are dying by the minute." Oh God! I've been here for 835 days. Do you think I do not know that? Like, it's not like I just came here yesterday, pal. Come on. Be real. Have some sense. The Ukrainian soldiers laugh at this every day. I'm laughing at it every day. It's a war. What can I do? Crying about it's not going to change it. I'm going to wait for some goofy response here because I know this isn't going anywhere good. So we'll see where that goes to the chat, but it's probably not going to be good. Oh, let's get rid of that
copyright.
travel vlog music. Hi guys, I'm at the airport where we can see the Russian column advancing.
You know, typically in the military, like when you say like a column is advancing, that's like a good thing. But when you say that for the Russians, you know, it's like that's like the Jaws music coming on. That's like something bad's about to happen.
Man, I'm telling you what. And we can see them already getting hit. Things are already starting to go badly. Now we got to cook an MTLB. Oh, damn. Wow, that thing really caught on fire kind of quickly. And now you can see a tank breaking its neck to try and get out of here. Getting hit as well. Getting knocked out.
Wait a minute. Here's somebody else getting mad about me making fun of Detroit. Someone says, "Stop hating on Detroit from Alabama. Your whole state is known for
sister kissing." Hey, listen.
Hey, look. If it may be true, I don't know nothing about it, but it may be true. I'm not going to sit here and get upset about it or anything like that. They clearly took the Detroit jokes to heart, though. I'm not ever going to get crazy upset if someone says something about Alabama. I know Alabama has a certain reputation to it, and you're free to have your opinion. I don't know why people get so upset about talking about Detroit like it's not like a hellhole.
Well. Every place has got its issues, but one thing everyone knows, Detroit is low-hanging fruit. But moving on to the clip in Marinka
yes.
and down to Novomykhailivka, we also got to see some more Russians getting hit by the 79th Brigade. And, well, actually, you should have listened to the song, man. It's a Ukrainian rap song. It's like FPV or something like that. Dude, right there. I'm not even kidding.
Oh, man. I feel like it could have been a banger, too.
It kind of was, but sadly we can't play it for copyright reasons. But we can see them hitting that vehicle. Ted Mitchell said, "I'm Metro Detroit. I don't care."
Exactly. See, I'm Central Alabama. I used to live in LA for a long time, Lower Alabama, but we got out of there.
I was like, "We never lived in Los Angeles, you liar." And then you said Lower Alabama. I was like, "All right, you had us in the first half. I'm not going to lie." Someone said West Virginia is where it's at. Man, don't even start. Like, don't even start with West Virginia. Like, Alabama is a little rough off. West Virginia is lost. Like, I'm really sorry for all the people in West Virginia because the economy exploded out there like 2 decades ago, and it's gone. I don't think it's ever coming back. But, you know, who knows? Maybe one day it will. It's just that West Virginia right now is in tough times.
I can see nobody's ever heard of Lower Alabama being referred to as L.A., by the way. Everyone's shocked by that. They're like, what the hell?
Man.
What the hell?
What the hell? What the hell does this mean, boy? But anyways, we can see them continuing to hit Russian vehicles. Overcap. A BMP-3 was hit right there. Nice. Controls of Quality said, used to live in Birmingham, Alabama. How did you survive all the shootings? Like, that's I call cap. But anyways, let's see. Oh man, I'm seeing a lot of people roasting Alabama. Listen, y'all, I'm not offended because while it's a little exaggerated, it's mostly true. Like, I'm not going to deny that it's a bit of an odd place. I love Alabama though. Like, I think it's a great state. But it does have its odd quirks and features, all right? If I run for political position in the future, you can guarantee I'm not a liar, because I will be honest about different parts of the country. Like, Alabama is a little bit of a weird place. Just putting that out there. But anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip from the Perun group and on down the line, out of the Zaporizhia area, and down towards the Dnipro, where we got to see a couple of Russians getting hit by drone today in Krinky. And we can see them pointing out the antenna that the Russians put in a tree and also the house that they're operating from as well. And they're about to be putting a stop to all that. Terran Young said, Alabama was okay. Which part, though? Like, I really have to know which part. Because if you're talking about Birmingham, Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, Tuskegee, or Mobile, no. If you're talking about any other part of the state, it's all right.
There's a Gucci part of Alabama called Mountain Brook, where the people there are crazily arrogant. You've never seen arrogant like Mountain Brook, Alabama. I'm telling you, you could probably go to California, like in the ritzy part of California, like Beverly Hills, and you won't even see the attitudes that you see in Mountain Brook. Like, you got to see it to believe it.
But moving on from that, we did also get to see that a
denying those allegations.
Well, we actually have viewers from Mountain Brook, Matty. But beyond that, we got to see that a Russian command vehicle was destroyed in the area of Kherson. Very nice to see. Very wonderful to know. And moving on from that and into Kazachi Library, we also got to see that some Russians were dropping some fab glide bombs onto Ukrainian positions here. We do not know if these positions were being occupied. We just know that the area was being controlled by Ukraine. But I did want to show y'all that Russian Air Force efforts are making it through at least a little bit in the area around the Dnipro River. And we're going to be muting the Russian music.
Why does it sound like Fallout 4 music?
It's kind of the Russian version, kind of, sort of. And let's see here. Someone said Alabaster was nice. Alabaster's not bad. No, I would say it's pretty good. Really, honestly, Birmingham, Alabama isn't that bad as long as you don't go to the north side of downtown, the east side of downtown, or the west side of downtown. As long as you stay in the southern side of downtown, it's kind of all right. Just don't go to 5 Points, though, because someone will stab you. Just
Mountain Brook.
Well, Mountain Brook's all right. I mean, Mountain Brook is okay. You know, it's you're not going to get stabbed in Mountain Brook, or like you can be guaranteed of that. And
listen, the people that live in Mountain Brook will tell you why I just told you about it. Like, I don't even care. Like, the people there know it.
I mean, probably. But moving on from that and down into the area of Sevastopol, it's time for me to bring y'all on to something that's an incredibly interesting treat. Pink MiGs. I'm not kidding. They're painting MiG-31s pink. We don't know why. We don't know what the purpose behind a pink MiG is, but we saw 2 of them in the satellite pictures. Here's one of them, and it's not a decoy. It's a real MiG, because you can actually see the shadow it's casting on the ground. And then we saw a second pink MiG-31 in another part of the airfield. We have no idea why they're painting them pink. These are specifically the ones that will fire the Kinzhal hypersonic missile. We're completely oblivious that we don't know why in the world these are pink. And also, it looks like they're trying to steal our honey badger symbol, so screw them. But anyways, still, really interesting to see. Never seen pink MiGs, but We'll find out why they're pink eventually. I just don't know why they are right now. But moving on from that and into the air defense report, we did get to hear that apparently the air losses for the Russians were incredibly high last night. 48 Shahed 136s and 5 KH-101 missiles were shot down by Ukrainian air defense overnight. A very successful interception and destruction raid. And without further ado, it's now time for us to move on to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Here on the 835th day of the war. And let me go to YouTube and let me go see if we got anything from Zelenskyy, because it looks like we may just have the speech from the 4th of June. He's starting to get a little bit erratic with making these addresses. But let's see here. So we have something. We got something. And it looks like something is going to have to be better than nothing. Because it seems as though his statement today was at a French press conference. And so really quickly, let me get that up on screen. There will be a translator on screen. There's nothing I can do about that. I know some of y'all find it a little bit distracting, but there's not much I can do. It's either the speech or nothing. It's nerf or nothing right now. And so let's skip through the part where Macron talks, and let's get to the part where Zelenskyy talks. Also, hang on, y'all. 1 second. I gotta see where this begins and also where it ends. So it looks like it's about 10 minutes long, so shouldn't be too long.
Які би не могли допомагати агресору,
One
подякувати
second, folks.
прийде ми
1 second, folks. Sorry, folks. Okay, so here we go. Here is the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
Президенте, дорогий Еммануель, шановні присутні, шановні журналісти, я дуже вдячний за запрошення відвідати Францію та за всю ту допомогу, Еммануель, яку ти, твоя держава, твоя команда дійсно дали всім нам, Україні і українцям. Ця допомога є очевидним захистом всієї нашої Європи, усього того, що ми цінуємо, що хочемо передати наступним поколінням європейців. Цими днями у Франції, в Нормандії, у багатьох інших місцях світу згадують героїзм людей у час Другої світової війни. І кожен розуміє, заради чого був саме той героїзм. На Омаха-Біч напередодні ми всі могли побачити, як це тоді було, бачили документальну хроніку, чули у спогадах. І всі ті кадри, всі ті емоції, вони дуже нагадували, через що проходять наші чоловіки, жінки, зараз наші воїни на фронті, наші люди в прифронтових містах, в громадах і всюди. Всюди в Україні, де життя зазнає ударів російського терору. Все це чітке свідчення того, що битва за Європу досі триває. Досі майбутнє наших з вами народів не визначено. І саме це належить зробити усім нам з вами, Україні, Франції, нашим союзникам. Європа має залишатись простором миру, простором свободи, а не насильства чи ненависті, які поширюють саме такі режими, як російський. Ми можемо це забезпечити. Я щоразу в цьому впевнююсь, коли відвідую Францію, коли бачу, з якою повагою Франція. Люди Франції ставляться до України, до українців. Я вдячний кожному і кожній, хто цими днями і весь час цієї війни підтримує нас, Україну, проявляє увагу Україні та українцям, дбає про те, що нам дійсно вдалося захистити себе і усіх вас. Свобода – це не просто слова на папері, навіть найбільш важливих конвенцій та декларацій. Це не щось таке, ви знаєте, що люди отримують у спадок від своїх батьків чи у подарунок від когось іншого. Свобода – це дуже крихке та дорогоцінне, дуже дорогоцінне відчуття, що ми усі так чи інакше поєднані чимось невидимим, але надзвичайно сильним. І особливо це проявляється тоді, коли ми захищаємо себе. Хто відстояв свою свободу, свої права, свою незалежність, свою гідність, цим зміцнює свободу і того, хто поруч. Свобода завжди має таку властивість зміцнюватись, поширюватись від людини до людини. І при цьому єдина дорога підтримує Україну. Єдина дорога, якою може пройти свобода, це сміливість людей. Еммануеле, пане президенте, я дякую тобі за те, що ти завжди шукаєш дуже правильне рішення і для нашого захисту, і для захисту всієї Європи, і за сміливість твоїх рішень, і за лідерство Франції. Україна цінує всю підтримку, яку Франція надає з перших днів цієї страшної війни. Ви підтримуєте наш захист на фронті, оборону наших міст від російських ударів і глобальний цілком справедливий тиск на Росію за цю несправедливу війну. Ми разом з Францією багато співпрацюємо політично і на двосторонньому рівні, і в Євросоюзі. Ми цінуємо нашу економічну співпрацю з Францією і домовленості, зокрема, про спільне виробництво зброї. Сьогодні є підписані угоди щодо цього, і будуть ще підписані угоди. І серед іншого ми домовились про відкриття, як ти вже сказав, в Україні офісу КНДС французької компанії, разом з якою ми будемо виробляти в Україні боєприпаси для артилерії 155-го калібру. І сьогодні ми обговорили з паном президентом ситуацію на полі бою, обговорили російські спроби розширити війну, а також нашу можливість їм протидіяти. Я дякую Франції, усім партнерам за вагомий крок для нашої безпеки, можливість знищувати російську зброю та позиції, з яких вони просто б'ють по наших містах, зокрема по Харкову. Саме такі сміливі антитерористичні кроки потрібні і надалі. Це Путін повинен відчувати, що його можливості вони обмежені, а не ті, хто захищає своє життя від його ударів. Дякую тобі, Еммануеле, за новий оборонний пакет, потужний для України. Це дійсно нам допоможе. Ми детально пройшлися сьогодні питанням про можливість Франції посилити нашу бойову авіацію. Ми маємо позитивне рішення щодо тренування пілотів та інженерів та отримання французьких літаків. Дякую тобі за це рішення. І говорили про справедливість для України, про використання заморожених російських активів на користь захисту від російської ж війни. Зараз готуємось до рішення, яке має бути вже в червні. Рішення про фактичний початок перемовин між Україною і Євросоюзом щодо вступу. Маємо підтримку Франції. Дякую вам. І ми обговорили підтримку саміту миру та участь Франції у реалізації формули миру. Вже за тиждень в Швейцарії розпочнеться інаугураційний саміт, в якому візьмуть участь лідери та держави з різних частин світу, всі, хто поважає статут ООН. Я вдячний тобі, Еммануель, за те, що і на саміті ти будеш, і окрім цього, французьке лідерство допомагає реалізувати пункти формули миру, зокрема пункт щодо радіаційної та ядерної безпеки. Ми сьогодні говорили також і про те, як можемо зміцнити позиції наших держав, України і Франції в глобальній енергетичній співпраці. І це точно буде благом і для українців, і для французів, і для усіх європейців. Ще одне. Сьогодні тут в Парижі та вчора в Нормандії я бачився з президентом Байденом, а також з сенаторами і членами Палати представників США. Взагалі, цими днями на вулицях Франції багато американських прапорів. І це символічно. Це нагадує про те, як Франція допомогла Сполученим Штатам здобути незалежність, і як Америка допомогла Франції перемогти нацистських окупантів. І ми всі є вільними націями настільки, наскільки підтримуємо одне одного. Так завжди, і століття тому, і тепер, і щоразу, коли свобода під ударом. Головне усім нам не втрачати сміливості, зміцнювати наше партнерство, зміцнювати наші альянси і завжди захищати життя. Дякую за все. Слава Україні!
And Herom Slava. And Herom Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And that wraps up this news segment on day 835 and moves us on into the question segment, where we get to talk to all of y'all. We get to talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. We get to address the super chats, the live chats, and everything in between. But of course, I got to thank everyone already for joining us tonight and watching it so far. There's still a lot more to watch for. It's going to be incredibly fun. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, really anything and everything under the sun. But at the peak tonight, there was 8.9 thousand people here, and 55,000 people have already watched this stream so far. And we are entirely honored and entirely humbled to know that all of y'all continue to choose this channel as your primary source of news. And so thank you all of y'all once again for watching so far. Make sure to stick around because the next segment is as fun as the first one. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right. And also, by the way, like when you're watching the speeches like that and there's like a sign language person in the corner, it's like so hard not to focus on the sign language lady. Like when Zelensky's talking, I'll admit I only got to hear like half the speech, but I was sitting there looking at the sign language. I was thinking, how do you memorize all those different like signs like that? That's so much stuff to remember. Like I genuinely like marvel at people who know sign language. It's very impressive to see it in action. But anyways, jumping into our first super chat of the last segment here, because we're fresh out of polls. This one goes to the Mugshot, who puts in a $25 donation. A huge shout out to the Mugshot for that support. They said, I am new to the channel, and what does LSA stand for?
And I gotta thank you so much for the support and enjoying this channel enough to find it worthwhile to help us to keep it running, because we run an ad-free, sponsor-free show. So the only way we make it possible to keep on air is through folks like you. So thank you for supporting it. To answer that question about what the LSA stands for, the LSA is the abbreviation for the Least Spring Army, which is a army that has been created around this channel that revolved from a gaffe that happened earlier on in the war. Way early on in the war, I said that Least Springs, to really annotate the story, were an archaic suspension system, which was a completely wrong statement. I got grilled for it. But I got grilled for it so bad, it ended up circling around from being a horrendous mess up to something that was actually pretty hilarious because of how people reacted for the next 2 days in the live chat. So then I said about the live chat, man, y'all are like an army of people in the Least Springs. And then someone in the live chat said it was the Least Spring Army. And so then I said, that will be the name of the community of this channel from here until the end of time. And now everyone who is a subscriber of the channel is a member of the Least Spring Army. And that is something that has stuck with us for an incredibly long time, because the anniversary, I forgot when the anniversary of the Least Spring Army is, the exact day, but I'll make sure to remember it here in a little bit. But LSA Day, I believe, is in April at some point. And it's really crazy to think that the LSA is now over 2 years old. And not only that, considering that all of the subscribers of this channel are members of the Least Spring Army, that means that the Least Spring Army is exactly 218,579 members strong. That means that we are larger than most militaries in Europe, which is pretty crazy to think about. We would actually, let me see, armed forces in the world by size. So let me see if I can get them categorized by size. So let's go to Statista and only necessary. Okay, so this is in thousands. So it appears that we would be down around the area. We would have an army about as big as, and I'm trying to make sure to look at this.
Let's see. Miss Disa, the official historian of the LSA, said day 28, the LSA formed March 23rd.
So it was March 23rd. I think that was when we did our LSA flag run, too. The first merch run was in March. Let's see. That would line up. Yeah, that would line up correctly. And so going off of that, and
wait, we did our first flag run.
Yeah, because our flag run was done during LSA week. Remember, it was leading up to LSA day.
Aha. Yeah, I think Miss Disa was talking about like day 28, like you know, like really early on.
Yeah, but you know that every year it's LSA day. You know, the year LSA was founded, we did the flag run this year, second year of the LSA. You know.
I think I get you somewhat.
What are you not getting? I mean, it was LSA day. We did that was the whole.
We met this year.
Well, yeah, man. The LSA day is on the same day every year.
Oh yeah, whatever, man. Just go.
Okay, all right. Anyways, if we were an armed force in the world, we would be bigger than Taiwan's official armed forces. We would actually be close to being the size of Cambodia, not that far behind Japan, and we apparently would outnumber pretty much every single European land army except for Ukraine and Russia, which are the only ones that would be larger than us in size at the moment. In fact, The Lee Spring Army is larger than the Polish military and the Taiwanese military. The Germans, the British, the French, we are larger than all of them, according to the number that I have right here. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least about the whole Lee Spring Army thing. And also another interesting thing is that we actually found out today, because I was actually talking to someone in person who is a member of NAFO, I actually found out that the official number of NAFO members is approximately 108,000, meaning that we actually are larger than NAFO by a factor of 2 to 1 at this point, as far as the Lee Spring Army goes, which is pretty crazy, because I never thought that the Lee Spring Army was larger than NAFO. I always thought that NAFO was larger than us, but it turns out we're actually about twice the size of NAFO as far as the official number goes, according to NAFO members, which is pretty cool. But still, with that, I thank you so much once again for support, your first support to this channel ever. I hope that I was able to address that question fairly well and give a good bit of background on it. But still, thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping this thing to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, I just thought I'd mention real quick, if you ordered a patch, I got most of the orders processed today. I think I have like 30 more left. So I've gotten way ahead on shipping, by the way. Those should be out very quickly. And to be perfectly honest with you, I ran out of the poly mailers, so I'm having to wait on them to arrive tomorrow to finish the last 30 orders. So they're going to be out super fast, much quicker than I was expecting. And I already see some of them getting delivered. So that's very cool to see. I'm seeing them arrive all the time throughout the day today. So they'll be out soon. That's the point. But anyways, jumping on to our next super chat, we have a $25 donation from Jason Carpenter. He says, "Hi guys, and just wanted to show my support and LSA rules, and you're killing it, bro. You're killing it. And a question from the chat, please."
And you're killing it, Jerry. You're killing it. And I gotta say, thank you so much once again for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And I gotta thank you so much once again, Jason Carpenter, for being a channel legend. You've been here forever. And I gotta thank you so much once again for making this channel possible, helping us to keep this thing running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now, continuing to kill it, Jerry, kill it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. Thank you for wanting this channel to continue to keep running, and thank you for always being here and always sticking with this channel through and through. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is a $20 super chat from Dr. Phil Mianos. See, I got around it. I got around it. This is Dr. Phil, but this is Dr. Phil X-rated. And thank you very much for that support. And sadly, no comment to address, but there was a super sticker. Let me go back and take a look here so that way I can describe it accurately. The super sticker was the Doge creature. It was clutching that trophy, kind of like Ukraine's going to be doing very shortly, and it's so happy. And also it's dressed up like a Japanese samurai for some reason. But this is a real one. This isn't that bullshito that the other guy practices over in Russia. What's his name? What's that guy?
Steven Seagal. I'm
it's Seagal, that's right.
Absolute legend, and we've got to bring them together.
Or something like that, whatever the hell he said in that statement, or that speech he made.
The Russian people are all together. And looks up at Putin like, is that good enough, or am I going to get shot? And Putin's like, go ahead.
I actually don't have the ability to grow facial hair. It's all pubes that I cut and glued onto my face. I hope it looks good. I'm telling you something, man. Listen, I don't think this is a hot take. That thing's got to go. Okay, like, I don't care if he's a pro-American, pro-Russian, whatever the hell the crazy guy is. Let me go pull up this guy and show you a picture of that goatee. That shit's vile. Look at that. Dude, that does not look good. Like,
you know God. What he looks like? He looks like the guy we saw yesterday, like a wax figure or something like that. He looks like he's fake, like just the way he looks. How does he look like that?
I don't know. I have no clue. But the goatee doesn't do any favors. It makes it worse. Like, get rid of that thing, man. Like, listen, like, I have a goatee, and goatees are not bad as a thing. But a goatee like that? That's terrible. That looks horrendous. You could mop the floor with that thing. You could, like that thing got shot and put on his head. Like, I don't even know where in the world you get that thing from. But that thing needs to go back where it came from, or so help me. It's horrendous looking. But yeah, I mean, Dude, that's why I had to make that joke. I hate that goatee. Like, it's the most hideous looking goatee I've ever seen, and it is a disservice to the goatee community. Also, that widow's peak that man has, he could go get a good role in a Dracula movie. He could be going blah 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 blah. But he would actually be going, "I've got to beat everyone's ass. Dracula has to win," or something like that because he's crazy. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. But Matthew, what was the super chat we were even on right there?
It was literally just a super sticker.
Oh, well, nevertheless, I got to thank you so much once again for that wonderful little super sticker with that Doge, with the samurai armor, and supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now, keeping this channel running. And I got to thank you so much once again, Dr. Phil, for making this thing possible. Also, I like the Mommet profile picture with the top hat. That is really cool. I respect that. Respectable. But still, with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again.
Yes, indeed. And our next one goes to Howard Turgell, who put in a $20 donation. Thank you very much, Howard, for that $20 support.
Hey!
It's the best support, big support, fantastic historical support. Howard says, Taco Tuesday. Oh, yes, it is Taco Tuesday. You see that over there? Lines of tacos. That's right. They're outside. Lines of tacos. Thank you very much.
And I got to say, thank you so much for the support, and thank you for helping this channel keep on running. And I got to thank you for supporting a Taco Tuesday. It's a Taco Tuesday somewhere in the world. Actually, it's not. But beyond that, it will be Taco Tuesday here very soon, Howard. And I will make sure to enjoy myself a delicious taco come Taco Tuesday. And so thank you so much once again. I'll say thank you, Howard Turgle, for the support and making this channel possible. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing going. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, we just had a bot in here. It's a whole bot. It said, "I'll be gone. I can't take the Ukraine simping by channel." Well, it's no secret that we're pro-Ukraine supporters. We don't support Russia, obviously, because they're invading sovereign countries. So, you know, it's okay to simp for Ukraine because Ukraine is fighting for their life because they're being invaded by a tyrannical dictator. So we're going to keep simping, and we will see you around. Maybe not. But anyways,
Mandy, I want to
say what?
I want to see a Chinese bot come in here. Man, when I start talking
remember?
Taiwan, no.
It didn't even put it. Wait, it didn't even put Russia on the list. You remember that bot from last night?
Yeah. It said like CCP bot or something like that. It was crazy, but let me see, Mandy. Can I find this? Let's see. This creature's arms off and cast them into a vat of wine. Let me see if I can find this really quickly. Find this meme. Oh, come on. You're not telling me they don't have this meme. Oh my god. Hang on. 1 second. I gotta go try and find this meme. I'm furious. Oh my god. I can't find it. But Matthew, it was like this picture. Hopefully someone can find the meme when I describe it. But it was this guy wearing like this Qing Dynasty outfit, like in this meme. And he like his arms up. And the meme was that originally he was talking about American politics. He was like cursing someone somewhere about something and praying that his side would win or whatever. It was really weird. But people turned it into a meme. And I was like, man, wait until a Chinese bot comes here and I start talking about Taiwanese independence or supporting Taiwanese interests. They're gonna be like, oh, Lu Baofeng, I pray that you rip this creature's arms off and cast him into a vial of wine and drown him or something like that. That's what the Chinese bot's gonna be like. I wish I could find that meme because like the whole joke is lost without the meme and without the exact text, but it is the funniest thing if I could find it. But that's what the Chinese bots are gonna be coming in here like at some point. They're gonna be like, oh, Lu Baofeng. They're gonna be like, cast this man into a vat of wine or something like that. But anyways, I hope that does address that the best I can, because the bots are hilarious at this point some days. And also, one thing I find incredibly weird is that the Chinese put such a huge emphasis on psychological warfare and psychological operations, but their bots are more see-through than Russian bots, because they will actually come in here with names like CCP bot number 99560 or something like that, and it's like, that's just a bot. Like, it's like, that's not even like a joke. It's a bot. And then it'll come in here and be like, long live Xi Jinping! And let me, hang on. Let me put this into Google Translate so that way I can get it correct. Chinese English. Actually, English, Chinese. Sorry, everyone. I gotta make sure to get these memes correct. We gotta make sure. Let's see. That'd be like Shongong Wangsi. That means long live the CCP, by the way. But anyways, with that,
I mean, that's what you were looking for?
yeah.
I thought you were about to like pull up a meme or something. I didn't know you like pulling up the actual like translation. That's crazy.
Dude, I sat there. I was like, hang on, I gotta make this meme. I was like, Chinese, English to Chinese, and I put long live the CCP, and then it said Zhongzhou Wanji. I was like, hey, there we go. I was like, we got it. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address the bots incredibly well. We get a kick out of them. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. So, real quick, I saw Uncovered Cube ask a question. He said, "Bot be gone shirts?" Question mark.
Oh.
And Uncovered Cube, now that the last merch run is officially over as of last night, I will go ahead and say and announce it's not going to be happening until probably late this month. Maybe the 1st of July, but probably late this month. We will have the Bot Be Gone shirts, and I also plan to have Bot Be Gone patches as well, if we can make that happen in time. So we will be doing that. And also for the international viewers, I have not forgotten about you. I'm still working on getting the international setup and configuration ready for the store. We'll probably run that in between now and the Bot Be Gone release. But I need to finish up actually shipping these last orders right here before I get knee deep on that. So it'll probably be a few days where we actually have something finished on that, but we haven't forgotten about y'all. But Bot Be Gone is the next run, and it looks super clean, I must say. Enforcer, how clean does it look?
That thing is so clean. It's cleaner than Hot Dog Man's comment section, where there are no comments because there are no viewers. But beyond that, it is clean as hell. I would highly recommend getting one in the future because I'm going to be getting one of those as well. Actually, I get all of our merch. Like I've got patches, mugs, everything that we've run in the past. I have one of them, and I'm going to be getting one of those as well. In fact, as far as LSA T-shirts go, I actually have 4 of them, but they haven't arrived here yet. Matthew, do we know when those are actually going to show up? Like at our house?
They're showing up. I think they're showing up tomorrow, to be honest with you. But I've had to place some replacement orders for some lost orders. So I keep getting notifications for tracking, which are other people's stuff. So I'm not sure if I saw the wrong one or not. But I think it should be like tomorrow or something like that.
Oh, thank goodness. I can't wait to get them because I want to wear them around the house. But I hope we address that well because you're dead on the money. The Bot Be Gone shirt will be next. And we were able to get a truly incredible and classy design for the thing. It looks great. And we will be making sure to get it out for all of y'all here in the next month. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again. And with that, hi guys, Enforcer here. Next question. I was trying to figure out where to go with that, but next question, Matthew. What have we got? What have we got?
All right, and real quick, another one from the live chat. I saw Romeo S say, "Can we have a bundle for international use?" And that is what's coming with the patches, by the way. It's going to be a pack of 3 patches to make the shipping make more sense. And we're also going to try to reduce the cost a little bit on the product to try to make up for the excessive shipping costs because we're feeling bad about that. Sadly, we can't control it, but we want to try to lessen the shipping burden a little bit. So we're going to try to take a little bit off the product, lower the cost a little bit to make it a little bit more sensible.
Also,
but that is coming up.
Also, Matthew, it just hit me. There is going to be, and I'm putting money on it. This is going to happen with everyone who gets them internationally, but I'm putting money on it. Most people internationally probably just want 1 patch, right? So they're going to get 2 extra. There is going to be someone out there, like 1 person who will end up scalping. That's like LSA patches, man. Think of like, you want an LSA patch? $20. It's going to be something like, someone's going to do it. I don't know, like, if it will happen, but I'm just going to say this. If it does happen, I'm going to find that to be extremely funny. Like, I'm not saying, like, shame on you for scalping. Like, yeah, kind of, but that still would be hilarious to see someone trying to scalp LSA patches in, like, Europe or somewhere else in the world. I would be laughing my head off if someone actually ends up doing that. But we will be selling them in packs for international viewers. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can about the patches that are going to be coming around. But they are still going to be the exact same patches we had in the first run. They're the same high quality. They look incredibly good. Get some! Get them! But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And we are on to the next one.
All right, so up next we have a $20 super chat from BC Skyman, the channel legend.
Hey!
And thank you very much, BC Skyman, for that support as always. And sadly, no comment to address. But BC is always putting in that support. And also, I hope the bandage situation is going good as well. And Enforcer, I believe, is either sending or it will be sending those bandages. And Enforcer, you said we're sending patches along with that, right, as well?
Yes, just to give a time frame here, BC Skyman. Of course, thank you for the support, by the way. But my bandages will be arriving here at our house anywhere in between the 10th to the 12th currently. We'll be throwing in a couple of patches with that. I don't know how many we will, but there will be several of them, and we will throw those in, and then we'll be mailing that all forward to you. All 150 bandages that I've got, and also the patches that will be going along with those as well over to Ukraine. So thank you so much once again for support. I hope that we can get those there in time. I think they will get to you in time, hopefully. And thank you so much once again for always being with this channel, BC Skyman, and supporting it and helping it to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so, thank you so much once again. And I hope we were able to address that well, and also the status of my bandages. Because Matthew actually sent 50, and I'm going to be sending 150. And so, collectively, we both sent 200 of them. And so, hopefully, that will help out a great deal in fulfilling the number that was required. And so, with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
I just gotta say, those bandages are mad expensive. And I'm telling you, those things are wild, those Leukomed patches. Or not patches, but bandages. Crazy expensive. But like, I saw a video of some guy using them, and I understand why they want that specific model, because it's like an all-in-one bandage, like fix up like any type of laceration and stuff. It looks very like effective. I'm not a medic or anything, but it looks effective to a layman at least. Also, by the way, we do have an upcoming United 24 donation, the 10% for the profits for the merch. That will be coming up in a couple of days. Once I get done shipping the current things, I got to do a total calculation of the profit, and then we'll be donating the 10%. And of course, for full transparency, we'll be posting the receipts as well on that very shortly. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat, we have a $20 donation from BA Technologies, and huge shout out to BA Technologies for that support. They said to keep the LSA going.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you so much for wanting to help the Lee Spring Army to keep on running. I gotta say, that's an incredibly high goal of you right there. And it does help us to keep this thing rolling. And so I gotta thank you so much once again for the support and wanting to help this channel to be possible and keep on rolling. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is a $50 donation, the largest super chat of the night thus far, from Pemioy. And thank you very much, Pemioy, for that massive support. And they said, "Slava Ukraine, and keep up the great work, boys. And always love listening to these, and I will drive around at work, or while I drive around at work. And much love."
Hey, and much love back to you. And I got to thank you so much for the support. And it's also cool to hear you listen to us while you're driving around at work. And that's something that I would like to take a quick moment to explain for everyone, because some people will go, "Oh my God, does the Enforcer just love to hear himself talk? Why in the world does he narrate videos when we can clearly see what's going on?" Well, guess what, Jack? Some people aren't watching the show. Some people are listening to it. So we kind of run this as like a joint visual show, like a normal show, and then we also run it a bit like a radio show, and that's why I end up, in all seriousness, actually narrating the videos while y'all can actually physically see what's going on. And also, we have a pretty decent contingent of blind viewers who cannot actually see what I'm talking about or what we're showing. So describing also works for them because they're kind of listening to it like a radio show at that point. So that's why we end up doing that. Is for folks like. And let me make sure I'm getting the pronunciation correct here, because I was about to say Paramoi. It's correct. So I don't even know why in the world I had to second guess that. But beyond that, thank you so much for enjoying the show, and thank you so much for the support and wanting us to keep up the good work, because you're helping us to make this possible. Everyone who supports this channel, and of course, I want to make this very clear for everyone, supporting is a choice. Y'all can choose to support or not to support, but the folks who support, like you, Paramoy, make this entire thing a reality, because we run this thing ad-free and sponsor-free on the live streams, meaning that there is no source of income to be had on these live streams. We don't really make a cent off of these things naturally. All of the income that we make to be able to do this as a job comes from support like yours, and it makes it a reality for us to do this as a job and keep this thing running day in and day out. And if it wasn't for folks like you who really enjoyed this channel and found it worthwhile to support it and help us to keep it running, we wouldn't be able to do this and keep it rolling right here, right now. We wouldn't be able to keep it rolling into the future because, you know, it just would not be possible. And I got to thank you greatly so much once again for enjoying this channel enough to be a part of the effort to support it and help it to keep on running, because it is folks like you who are the only thing, the first and final line of defense in keeping this channel alive and keeping our operations going day in and day out. And not only that, also making sure that the Lee Spring Army has a home, because the Lee Spring Army was born from this channel, lives through this channel, and if the channel was to die, the LSA will probably die with it. But still, with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Burbo. Excuse me, good lord. This one goes to Burbo, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Burbo, for that support. He said, I've been a follower for quite a while now, and cheers from Mexico and LSA.
Hey, and cheers to Mexico. Really cool to know that Mexicans are watching, because Mexicans are actually a very small part of our viewer demographic. And really quickly, let me go to my views. Let me see here. Okay, so interesting. Let me go to where the demographics here of geography. Where is Mexico on this list? Mexico is way down the list. Over the past 28 days, there's only been 12,024 views from Mexico, making up 0.3% of the total views we've gotten, which is 4.2 million views over just the past 28 days. And that's actually one of the lower points of the past few months. But beyond that, I gotta say, it is amazing to know, Burbo, that you're one of our few and rare Mexican viewers who get to watch this stream live, and I thank you so much for enjoying the stream enough to support it and help it to keep on running. That is incredibly kind and incredibly generous of you, and it's great to know the Lee Spring Army is truly international, spanning pretty much every single country within the Western world. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Thank you for your first support ever, and thank you for being an incredibly rare viewer just by geographics alone, or geography alone, more so, not geographics. Geography would be the better word, but still, thank you so much once again, Burbo. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to James D. Mann, who puts in a $15 donation. And thank you very much, James D. Mann, for that support. He says, good day from down under. And could you guys touch on how the French played a vital role in the American Revolution? And shout out to King Louis the XVI.
And thank you so much for the support and wanting a little bit of a history lesson. I'll make sure to sum this up short and sweet. Matthew, reread it for me really quickly so that way I can get this all set up in my mind.
He said, could you guys touch on how the French played a vital role in the American Revolution? And shout out to King Louis XVI.
Okay, so short recap. There was a war that happened right before the Revolutionary War, or the American War of Independence, as some people will call it around the world, from 1775 to 1783. Before that war, there was another one called the French and Indian War, which was an extenuation of the 7 Years' War. Many historians actually call the 7 Years' War the First World War, as the war actually occurred around every single corner of the globe. But beyond that, the American part of that war was the French and Indian War, where the British colonists ended up fighting, you guessed it, the French and the Indians. The French and the Indians ended up losing, much like they did everywhere else in the world in that war. And because of that, the British ended up getting control of the Ohio River Valley and everything over towards the Mississippi River. So everything in this area became a part of British control. However, the British made an agreement with the Native Americans, Indians, whatever you want to call them, that the colonists would not move beyond the Appalachian Mountains. So there was actually a line that was drawn on the map where American colonists were not allowed to cross. If you went any farther than that, you were breaking the law. The British would confiscate any of your belongings and send you back into the areas in which you could live in. This caused a little bit of resentment, but not only that, the war that created this boundary in America in the Appalachian Mountains made the British really poor. And considering that most of the war and most of the expenditures were sustained within the area of North America, at least in that particular instance, the British decided that it would be important to raise taxes from the American colonies, so that way the American colonies could kind of pay off their own defense that just happened a little while ago from the French and the Indians. The Americans were not really happy about that. They said, hey, wait a minute. We ought to be able to mooch off the system. What the hell are you talking about? Like, no joke. That's really, like, the whole entire premise here, is that they should have been able to mooch off the system. I'll be entirely honest with you. Back in the day, I actually would have made the argument the taxes were kind of fair. I mean, sure, they weren't done with representation, but at the same time, the British Army literally just was shipped from Britain to America to defend the colonies. And not only that, it was extremely expensive. The only reason they remained British colonies was because the British won. So, you know, you got to be a little bit appreciative there. A little bit. But anyways, that's not the world we live in. We're Americans now. I'm pretty proud of that. But anyways, people were kind of getting a little pissed. And so folks started to say things against the British government, which they could actually do. They actually had the right to free speech back then. The British weren't like oppressive people or nothing. But a lot of people are saying that there should be no taxation without representation. And representation should be required within the British Parliament for them to raise taxes on the American colonies. These remonstrations were sent forward to the British government. The British government refused them, saying that that's ridiculous. Only British counties, British counties in the United Kingdom could have representation within the British Parliament. So this is absolutely ridiculous, which they kind of had a little bit of a point with that, but still. And that pissed off the Americans even more. Then people started to get a little bit violent. Things started breaking out into riots. There was the Boston Massacre, the Boston Tea Party. The House of Burgesses was suspended by the British government for espousing anti-British views. There was all kinds of stuff going on that started to get people a little bit pissed off. And then there was these things that we call, the British call the Townsend Acts, but we call them the Intolerable Acts, as they started to raise massive taxes on basic luxury goods, such as things like stamps, which really involved any paper products, tea, which was a big consumable at the time, much more bigger than coffee was, and all those things. Luxury goods was starting to be taxed. There were window taxes that started going around, all kinds of ridiculous crap, pissed people off. People are very unhappy. So then people started talking, well, the British aren't listening to us, so let's just rebel against the British and end up creating our own country. Or better yet, rebel against the British and then have them accept our demands. Then that kind of went out the window as soon as actual armed conflict began. But beyond that, armed conflict went on for about a few years. And then finally, the French thought, hey, our people are starving. They're in a drought. It'd probably be a good idea to put in some money into our people and make sure that they're well fed, because they're our people. Why not? And a whole bunch of people in France said, nah, screw that. They can starve to death. We're going to go put a lot of money into this war and let the Americans win. So the French actually ended up fighting a naval war against the British over most of the other half of the Revolutionary War, especially after the Battle of Ticonderoga in New York. And then not only that, the other interesting thing was that they actually started to join the American forces on land, and along with help from the Germans in von Steuben, who really laid out a lot of early American military doctrine and tactics, and then not only that, from Marquis de Lafayette, who was another French officer, a very young officer, who also helped out as well. The American military was actually able to decisively defeat British forces on the battlefield multiple times until the Siege of Yorktown in 1783, which led to the Treaty of Paris in 1783, which then led to U.S. independence. If it wasn't really for French involvement, the United States may have not been able to win the Revolutionary War, or it may have dragged on a lot longer. Either way, the French were a very important part in the American Revolutionary War, and that was what led to the United States having a fairly close connection to the French, even after the French monarchy fell and it didn't turn into an empire and then a republic later on. We still had some pretty okay relations with the French, and of course we ended up getting some pretty okay relations with the British, and then that all ended up sorting out very well after the Congress of Vienna in 1815, when the French and the British largely started to meld together and end up becoming allies in the end. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the story. And I thank you so much for the support and wanting to hear that story, because that was the best way I could summarize it. And it's a really interesting thing. And also, let's see. Phil said, Americans speak American English to this day. The American Constitution is founded on British law. That's also really true. And that's something that a lot of Americans do not know, is that America is not that much different than Britain, except for the actual federal government and state government levels. Those are different because we actually have a bicameral Congress. The British really only have a unicameral parliament, because the House of Lords is really a regulatory institution at this point and doesn't really have a lot of say-so in the passing of laws. But the U.S. government is a little bit different, but the basic framework was laid out by the British. If it wasn't for the British influence in the colonies, there would have never been the kind of constitutional system that respected the kinds of rights and liberties that we have now. That's all basic British foundations for government that was brought over into America. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. I see a lot of people saying, shout out to the British. Yeah, I mean, the British are not bad. I mean, like, a lot of people rap on the British and say that they suck. I mean, they know they do not suck. The British are the basic foundation of all Western democracies and Western democratic I guess you could say, liberal principles, not in the modern political form of liberal, but the actual academic form of liberal principles that exist in the Western world. And you got to give them a lot of credit for that. Because a lot of people always say that the Romans were what created the Western world, but really in modern times, it was really more so British influence that ended up influencing the entire Western world in one form or another. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, Quantum Fire said, America doesn't have an official language? That is correct. Actually, the United States does not have an official language. We have an unofficial... we have an unofficial unofficial language of English, but the United States government does not recognize an actual language. And let me make sure I'm correct on that. Does the U.S. have an official language? Let's see. And I'm correct. According to USA.gov, the United States does not have an official language. English is the most widely used, but we also have government documents that do come in Spanish. But I believe to become a U.S. citizen, you have to have a basic knowledge of English, considering that a big part of becoming a citizen of the United States is having the ability to assimilate. Even now in the modern day, assimilation is still a big part of being able to earn citizenship. So you have to understand American culture, you have to be okay with American culture, and you also have to be able to understand, speak, and deal with a large part of the American population, which does speak English. No, the answer is we do not have an official language. We also do not have an official religion either. That was a big part of the First Amendment, is the division of church and state. And the U.S. government, and this is something I will be entirely honest about, really quickly speaking about this as a theoretical thing. The United States government nowadays has a lot of people in really every direction who try and lift up or support specific religions of specific groups. The U.S. government was never made to do that, and it's never supposed to do that. The U.S. government is pretty much supposed to be completely nose blind to religion in talking about it, covering it, or supporting or condemning any side. And that's why I'll be honest, in my honest opinion, and let me give a full disclaimer here, I am a Christian, but I do not like when people say in government, I'm a Christian, because I know, one thing, they're a politician, so clearly they're not that good of a Christian. And second off, it seems like pandering, and it is pandering. It's pandering to get votes. That is a stupid thing to do, and I honestly do not want my religion getting tied into politics. Politics is like the absolute cesspit, and so I do not want it touching that. I'll be entirely honest. Like, just leveling with y'all here. So I can assure y'all, if I hear anyone pander in that way or form, I'm actually cringing for the most part. Like, what? Like, you're telling me you got to pander like that? You just can't win off of your policies? Like really? You know, it's like your policies ought to be good enough to win yourself some votes. You ought to not be pandering like that. That would be like me running for office and going, "Hi guys," and then I go to Alabama. I'm like, I grew up working on farms. I worked in timber. I like trades. I drive a pickup. I like gasoline. Natural gas is pretty cool. Car building's pretty neat. We need more jobs. Well, it's like, that's just pandering. It's like most of that's pandering. It's like, just work on policies. Keep all the pandering out of it. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next super chat here, we have one from the Truth Sleuth, who puts in a $15 donation in. Thank you very much, Truth Sleuth, for that support. Hey! And they said, "Good day, mates. And do you think that Russia may have possibly loaded with a few of nuclear missiles on some of those vessels near Cuba?"
Some people have been rumoring that, the Truth Sleuth. That's not a bad question at all. Some people have actually been rumoring that. I'm doubting it a little bit, because proliferating nuclear weapons to Cuba is literally Cuban Missile Crisis material, and we know how far that went in the past. So I would say that kind of escalation would be desperate. I don't think the Russians would do that, but it's not out of the question. I just think it's highly unlikely at the moment, but I don't want to rule it out entirely, because we don't know what's on the support vessels that are heading down there. So, it's a question. I mean, it's a question we can't really answer too well on this channel, because we don't have a proper intelligence to know what's on board those vessels, but I would consider it to be a little unlikely that nuclear weapons would be on them, but it's not out of the picture either. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support in helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to answer really interesting questions like that. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and our next one goes to Tom Exman, who puts in a $10 donation, and thank you very much, Tom, as well. He says, Apollo 8 astronaut Lieutenant Andrews crashed his Beach 34 today near Canada, and he took the famous Earth photo going around the moon on Christmas Eve in 1968. And Tom, I saw that. I saw the video of him crashing that thing. That was terrible, and rest in peace to him. That was an awful tragedy there. The plane literally looked like it took a nosedive from a decent altitude, like straight into the ground. Quite interesting to see. Like the footage had me kind of shocked and like dumbfounded a little bit. I was like, well, damn. I was like, what happened to cause something like that? I don't even know how to explain it, but very unfortunate accident. And also rest in peace to him. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say the same thing. Rest in peace to the guy. Of course, a influential part of the steps forward that led to the United States finally landing on the moon with Apollo 11 and then through to Apollo 19, I believe, which was the last one that landed on the moon. Unfortunate to hear that the guy passed away. I never saw the video of the crash, but man, they told me that it looked like a straight nosedive. It may have been pilot error, well, deliberate pilot error that led to that, or it may have been that the guy ended up having some sort of, I would assume, cardiac arrest, ended up passing out, leaning forward onto the stick, which led to the dive. I mean, the guy was very old. He was, I believe, 90, so it's not out of the question. But still, very unfortunate to hear, and thank you for sharing that news with everyone, just in case they hadn't heard it. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Love is Everything, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Love is Everything. They said love to all. And take a question from the chat.
And thank you so much, Love is Everything, for the support. And love is all. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat. But thank you so much once again for always coming in with that overwhelming positivity that people need in this world. And so with that, what do we got for a live chat, Matthew?
All right, so the live chat question here goes to Walrus, who says, do you think that North Korea would put people on the ground in Ukraine?
No. I don't think North Korea would put people on the ground in Ukraine. They don't really have any support or supply efforts that could reach all the way across Russia. So I would say they probably wouldn't, but they will still continue to support the Russians with material efforts like weapons. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to JP on the Road, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you, JP. He says, Google the true size and W3BS1TE to compare country size to California and other, and long live the LSA.
And thank you for supporting. I actually know about the true size of map. We've used this a lot on this channel, but let's grab the Philippines right here. And let's drag this over to America. So this is how big. Dang, dude! The Philippines is actually pretty freaking big if you just overlay it over the west coast. It goes all the way from the very bottom to San Diego and at its peak in Portland, Oregon. That is actually huge.
That's a good bit.
So let's see what that will look like on the U.S. East Coast. So let's see here. Let's put that down in Florida. So the bottom part here in Miami is the furthest southern part. And then the most northern part would be in Louisville, Kentucky, to give you all an idea of how big the Philippines are. It's huge, actually. But, you know, in terms of landmass, it's about the size of Montana if we put it all together. But in just overall size, you can kind of get an idea of how big the Philippines really are. If we were to overlay the Philippines in Europe, however, you can even get an idea of how large the Philippines are here. Let me drag this down to the bottom of Italy. So at its bottom, it would be right at the very edge of the Italian mainland near Sicily, and then at the very most northern area, it would be near the area of Bad Hersfeld, which is a major part of the Fulda Gap area. But anyways, beyond that, that is massive. Now, let's get the real question, Matthew. How big is Russia? Wow, that looks huge, right? No.
Oh, a shrinkage.
I was in the pool. I was in the pool, but anyways, but dude, look at this. And when you move it onto the equator, I mean, it's tiny actually. Like here's Russia, and here is the United States overlapped on Russia. When you put them like that, you can see that the size difference isn't really that big. But when you have the Mercator projection as a big part of a flat map, Russia looks like it takes up a quarter of the world, when it really only takes up about 15% of the landmass. Like, look at that. Isn't that crazy? how the
And
Mercator.
Russia's got some crap land like out there that they really can't even use. Like a lot of Russia's not even used because it's like uninhabitable, basically. So at least we can use most of our land.
Dude, I was just thinking, man, when the Russians went to Ukraine, they went, I'm going to go to war with Ukraine. And then they got beat. They did something like that.
Hey, that's perfect. Like you were looking for animations for your video, just go right here and turn on screen capture and like have Russia bouncing around and talking.
Dude, America said, I'm going to support Ukraine with the weapons. And then they give the weapons, Russians go, bleh, suka, bleh, пишите нахуй.
Man, make Russia real small. Make it real small. He said, oh, man. Look at that.
Man, wait, hang on. Russia, 分手啊，就喝血吧，冰淇淋。Oh, dude, you can actually get a crack out of this stuff right here. Also, they already have a China right here. Now, let's see if they'll recognize Taiwan on this map. Oh, they do. Oh no, they're banned in China. Look at goodbye to true size map in China. They're banned. But how big is Taiwan compared to a country in Europe? How big is this island? It's about the size of Moldova, or Switzerland, or Belgium, or the Netherlands. Dude,
Oh, yes, this land is small.
dude, actually, Taiwan is actually fairly small. Like, I didn't realize how small Taiwan really is because I thought the Mercator projection would make it look a little bit smaller than it really is compared to most other countries on the map, but it's not really by much.
But that little small piece of land has one small little piece of stuff on it that the Chinese would really love to have, which are the chips. They would love those silicon chips from TSMC. Because otherwise, why would you be vying for that island so badly unless you just wanted to take that industry like really desperately?
That's true, man, 100%. Also, you know something else that's really interesting? Is that when you put Japan over these islands in the area north of Russia, they're actually wildly small islands. Like, if we actually move them down near Japan, they're not that big. Like, I'm actually curious now. Let's get Russia again. There's that island. Now, let's move that down to Japan. So this island right here is only that big in reality. But when it's on the normal map, this thing looks about twice the size of Japan up there because of the Mercator projection. And to quickly explain that, why this map looks this way. So the Mercator projection is trying to put a globe onto a flat map. The world is round. Like, we're not even arguing that. But anyways, it's trying to put a round globe onto a flat map. And there's a lot of problems with that because it never perfectly translates over. So this guy, I forgot his first name, but his last name was Mercator. He ended up coming up with an idea that you could end up putting the map of the Earth onto pretty much a balloon, stick it into a cylinder, blow it up, and then the ink from that would place a pretty accurate looking map from a globe onto a flat map. And that's how we end up getting this map that everyone knows. Like, everyone would know this map if you look at it and go, yes, that is the Earth, although it's really not. It's completely misrepresented. Like, this is how big India looks like on a Mercator projection map. If we put it up in Russia, that's what it would look like. Because everything gets larger the further away you get from the equator. That's just how the projection system works. So, a pretty interesting fact about how maps are made and cartography and everything. And I hope that gives y'all a little extra to know that Sweden is not that big. Like, let me get Sweden here, and then I'll move it down towards the equator. That's how big Sweden really is if we put it on the equator and got its true size. And if we put it over in America, this is how big Sweden is. It's actually pretty big. But on the equator, it's not that big. But if we put it up in Canada, it looks huge. And if we put it all the way up here, it's freaking massive. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you once again for supporting this channel and helping us keep this thing running. And also letting us see the true size of the Philippines. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Love Is Everything, who puts in a $20 donation for the second support of the night. And huge shout out to Love Is Everything for that second support. They said, I was at Walter Reed Hospital in Bethesda, Maryland yesterday, and I want to give a shout out to all the wonderful doctors, nurses, and staff who take care of our military, and love to them. That is a good shout out, by the way. And also, that's where the president goes. Like, I do remember that name. That's where he goes, or she goes, or whoever, whenever they're having a problem.
And let's see here. Here is Bethesda, I believe. Yep, this is Bethesda. Where is the hospital in Bethesda? Let's see. Oh, here we go. The National Institute of Health Clinical Center dude, that's actually about the size of the freaking city, man. That thing's huge. No wonder they take the president here. They probably got everything in this hospital. But still, thank you for the support. Huge shout out to them. Huge shout out to most of the medical staff, really all of them here in the United States. Oh, wait, hang on. Sorry. Walter Reed is actually right next door near to the National Institute of Health.
A little small.
Whoops. A little mess up there. But anyways, nice to see the Walter Reed National Medical Center. And thank you so much once again for support, love us, everything, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who helped make this thing possible. And a huge shout out to the folks of Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, because they do an amazing job and are also the first line of medical help. Really the first and last line for the Office of the President of the United States. And so with that, thank you so much.
Whoa, Jack, be careful. Hook me up to that IV. Whoa, Jack, I remember corn popping them, the razors.
Whoa, I want some of that juice. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for support.
Don't bring me to the hospital gunk on a plate. I don't want it.
I gotta tell you, the best medical staff, you just can't beat them. People have been saying, wow, that's a good staff. That's a great staff.
But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Romeo S., who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Romeo, for that support. He said, take a question from the chat. And we shall, Romeo. We shall get a question. And thank you very much for the support. And sponsored by Romeo S., this one goes to Kid Rock, who says, have the Russians used or lost any of their T-14s in Ukraine yet?
They have not used them in Ukraine, and therefore they haven't lost any in Ukraine. They have a very limited number of them. The T-14 has already been canceled for serial production, so we know it will never be used in Ukraine, and is really a parade ground princess for the large part. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Captain Chris1220, who makes a return once again and puts in a 5. And also, let me get rid of this bot real quick. Captain Chris, got to get rid of him real quick. Get out.
Boom!
Right. A terrible, terrible person. A bad person. Terrible. He should be ashamed for being in here. But Captain Chris says, I've been away for a while, but I'm so proud that you two are still going and love Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. You have been away for a while, but of course we are still here, and we always will be for the large part. We're going to be here probably for y'all's kids to grow up. If y'all are having kids right now, your kids will probably grow up, and we will still be running this channel by the time they're full grown, which is pretty crazy to think about, but we are here to keep it up. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who helped to make this thing possible, and if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And thank you for still checking in on us every once in a while, making sure that we're still keeping this thing running, because we're still here and we always will be. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and our next one goes to Chris, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Chris, for that support. And also, we are not talking about your mother. We're talking about the other Chris when we make these comments. So I think he got confused. I think not. It wasn't tonight. It was like a month back. He was like, "Hey, wait a minute. Are you talking about my mother?" I was like, "No. We're talking about the other one. The other one." But Chris,
don't be talking about my mama.
You're talking about my mama. But anyways, Chris said, if Russia ever made the mistake of attacking NATO, then the Russian army would get a first-hand look at the Highway of Death footage from 1991. FAFO.
I agree with you completely. And I got to thank you so much for the support, because they would learn their lesson, and they would learn it badly. It'd be over for them. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And that statement is true. It's very true. And the Russians just don't want to know. Like, they know it will happen, and so they will never know in reality, in the real world. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running, Chris. It is people who help to keep this channel running. And of course, we ain't talking about yo mama. We talking about the other Chris's mama, the bad Chris that has been gone from here for months. But still, thank you so much. Yo mama so fat, or something like that. Wait,
I remember way back in the day, like if you started a sentence off with yo mama, like you knew a scrap was about to go down.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It was about to go down between two people. If
Man.
you ever heard people say that at the school we grew up in.
Man, remember when Keebler Elf made fun of the Pacific Ocean's mom and they almost went at it? Oh my god.
I remember that one guy started crying, like going berserk.
You ain't gonna be talking about my mama.
He wasn't really ready to fight the other guy, because the other guy was like freaking like 400 pounds or something like that. And this other guy was like, I think 150 at best. I was like, dude, like, he's trying to go up against a freaking tank. It's like this dude's about to get freaking slaughtered in a minute. But he started crying and going berserk. Talking about, you ain't talking about my mama.
Man, dude, oh my lord. Dude, I remember that, man. And you know what was even funnier is that didn't Keebler Elf end up getting expelled from the school at some point because of something?
Probably so.
Yeah, I think
Probably.
so. Because, Keebler Elf then went on, I think, like 2 weeks later to teabag some short kid playing basketball. Remember that? Like, physically
Yeah, I
teabag
remember
the
that.
kid. Oh my goodness, man. Middle school was a trip. This all happened in middle school, by the way. And we came up with nicknames for everyone. So this guy, he actually looked like the Keebler Elf. I'm not even lying. He had like the little like whiskers on his cheeks and like the ears and everything. So I called him Keebler Elf, and also the haircut looked the same too. And then there was this other guy who was specifically he was a bit of a larger fella. You could tell that he quite enjoyed the meats and flavors of the world. But he always wore blue shirts. So it ended up leading him to get the nickname of Pacific Ocean because it looked like it. And so when that went down, that was the day that everyone in school knew the Pacific Ocean almost swallowed up and drowned Keebler Elf. It was about to happen if it had gone any further. Like, we were about to have some maritime accidents going on in here. It would have been so bad, it would have gone down in Walter A. Lakota's book. And it didn't even happen really at sea, but it was going to be that bad. But still, with that, I hope that gives y'all a colorful look into our lives growing up in school. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Fishing and Kayaking, who puts in a $5 donation and says, I just ordered the Ukraine M1A1, and I'll have to put a Loose Spring Army flag on it.
And hey, and I've got to thank you so much for the support. I'd love to hear that. You put an LSA flag on that thing, you put it on there. We would love to see it. And if you want to send pictures to us, feel free anytime. We love to see them, and they always lift our spirits to know that everyone around the world is supporting the Lee Spring Army through and through. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we've got a 5 from Eric Kress, who says, here's toward the Lego Castle Fund before Putin launches any nukes, LOL.
Hey, and thank you so much for the Lego Castle Fund. We would love to get some Legos, but we'd actually have to run a Sunday night fundraiser these days because Legos are expensive. Woo-wee! Like, the average Lego kit's like $300 now. Like, I'm not even joking. But still, with that, I got to thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like y'all who helped to make this thing possible and help this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we're on to the next one. But thank you so much once again.
All right, and this one is going to go to Chris yet again. He puts in another 5 and says, Putin has announced the T-90 replacements, and Russia will now mount tank turrets on Ladas to turn the tide of the war, and Russian engineering at its finest.
It really is at its finest at this point. We're seeing things that we thought weren't even possible just a few years ago, but I'm having a feeling they will probably not blow up as tremendously as the normal tanks, but we'll have to wait and see. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and the next one goes to Bruce Lee, who puts in a 5 as well. He says, how that Kamosh driving, Bayraktar dodging, Marmot doing? Oh, he's roasting him.
Oh, he's running, you know. Let me go get the Marmot. And let's see here.
Hello. Hello.
Hello there. What you like, Plum?
Hello there. You know, we haven't heard from one particular hot dog seller in a long time. It's like a blessing in disguise, I'm telling you. But he's got to reappear eventually because the viewers get low. And you know what breeds viewers? Controversy.
Aw, man, I'm just cooking it up. This time I'm totally going to destroy you now with my half-baked lies. Aw, man, it's coming. Quick disclaimer. I know for some people they'll be like, hey, he hasn't said anything in a while. Why not drop it? We've done that so many times in the past to know that this is only the break in between the one hit piece and the next. And when the viewers start to drop off again, another one will be coming around. So there's no point in stopping. So, you know, we just keep it going until the next hit piece comes, because who cares at this point? But anyways,
and you'll do what you're told.
You'll do what you're told. No, but anyways, I gotta say, Thank you so much for the support. And the Marmot's been doing great. Alan has been doing wonderful. And we got to thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. We wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling. And I got to thank you greatly for asking how this Marmot's going, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to know. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And I see people in the chat saying, "Oh, he will," about what I said a moment ago. He will, like you know, back in the day, because over the course of the past 6 months, I think it was over 3 instances, we were like, "Oh, look, it looks like he dropped it. He's moved on. Thank God, we can just drop this and move on." So we would stop the jokes for like 2 weeks or so, because we were like, it's over. And then he would come back and make another hit piece. And then he started to physically threaten us the last time. So at this point, I'm going to realign your jaw. It's like, yeah, sure. It's like you're going to have to get on a step ladder though to do that. So come on, let's be a little realistic here. You know, it's like, well, it's ridiculous. So at this point, we don't even care about stopping, because we know it's just a matter of time before the guy circles back around. And we don't work off of that guy's timetable. We work off of ours. So we're just going to keep roasting the guy until the next hit piece comes out, because it will come out. But with that,
Charbroil.
oh man, those hot dogs are going to be extra cooked. Also, one more thing.
You know, it could run on like a schedule. Like if he ever runs out of like the good kush or whatever, like he doesn't have any more to smoke, then he just moves on to, "Oh, I'm fiending. Oh man, I gotta lash out." And he lashes out at us every time. It's like, dude, lash out at somebody else. He has to had some other victims though. Like he moves on to like victims here and there. When he realizes that he's not getting the attention, he moves on to the next victim. Also, other people don't respond quite like we do. They respond a little less strongly, I guess you could say.
Some people respond so stupidly. Like the guy will sit there, "I'm specifically doing this to try and show my power and get my ego stroked by having people bend to my will." And then one specific person out there, it will go, "Oh, I'm so sorry." It's like, what are you, stupid? Like, this is what this guy wants. Just leave him alone. Ignore him. But you know, some people don't. People never learn. People never learn. And also, Goldenberg said he does need money right now for a vacation to Ukraine. Isn't that so interesting that a lot of the monetary effort of that channel really doesn't go into helping Ukraine? It goes into getting vacations. Doesn't anyone kind of find that a little weird? I do. Like, because when we do Sunday night fundraisers, we don't sit there and go, "Okay, yay, we raised $5,000. Now I need $5,000 to go on vacation." No, we don't do that. We just go, "There's $5,000 and we're back right on the grind, never stopping." Like, you know, it's like, that's how I feel you ought to run things, especially if you're saying that you have the best interests in mind. You should make sacrifices and not make everything a vacation. That's just my take. But, you know, what do I know? I've only been doing this nonstop for 835 days and have not had a vacation at any point during that. And, you know, have gone through multiple massive stresses just trying to keep this thing running. We've been doxxed, we've been harassed, people have tried to hack us, all kinds of crazy crap. But you know, we still keep going. We don't ask for vacation. We don't ask for sympathy, because this is what we signed up for. It's what we do. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, thank you once again for support. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Wyatt Logan, who puts in a $5 donation, and also Tamara Bakalu, who put in a $5 as well.
Hey!
And huge shout out to you, Wyatt and Tamara, for that support. And of course, we appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
Thank you, Wyatt and Tamara, for the support. We do massively appreciate it, like Matthew said, and I got to thank you greatly for helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling. And I got to thank y'all greatly once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Super Creech, who puts in a 3. And says, "Sorry, Watcher, chat question, please. Great show, bros."
And thank you so much for saying it's a great show. And of course, we'll get a live chat. So what do we got, Governor?
So this live chat question goes to DT, who says, "Is anyone telling Putin the truth about how the war is going and that he's actually losing?"
I don't know if people do, because it seems like he kind of lives in La La Land or delusion world. Maybe people do, and he just believes, he just does not want to believe it. I don't really know. I would assume someone has to have told him at this point, though, because he did remove Shoigu and a couple of other people. So I would say he probably does know. He just feints not knowing. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat. And thank you once again for supporting this channel and helping us keep this thing running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to 3Z Games, who puts in a 2 and does not leave a comment, but huge shout out to you, 3Z, for that support and helping to keep this whole thing running. And we also have a 2 from Uncovered Cube, who said, "You guys are awesome, and thanks for what you do, and LSA."
Hey, and thank you so much for the support on Uncovered Cube and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now making this channel possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And with that, that is our last super chat to address. So we're now moving on to our live chat questions. And of course, up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. And tonight, it was Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, and David Millsaps. They said, the Morse for tonight says, Russian forces are being beaten badly deep behind the lines. They should leave Ukraine one day. Long live the LSA, and nice job, guys.
And that is the sound of money. And y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. And I got to congratulate y'all for getting that correct. Thank you, by the way, for saying that we're doing a good job. That was incredibly nice of you. But beyond that, I got to congratulate y'all for getting that Morse code message correct. Y'all been getting it correct for 835 days now and still have not missed a single one. That is truly impressive, and I got to give y'all a huge shout out for that because that is really actually amazing that y'all get that Morse code message correct without fail every day. Y'all do it that easily. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to the live chats, and we're going to be answering live chat questions until the top of the hour. And so with that, we are on to the first one.
So this one goes to Mick, who says, is Russia trying to sway the Taliban against the United States or ISIS-K? Oh, and trust me, Mick, it doesn't take too much swaying at all to get the Taliban against the United States. They think we're the worst, so they didn't need any persuasion from Russia. Trust me. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think the Russians are just trying to consolidate terrorist groups to operate against the United States. I don't really think they have to sway them. They're already anti-American. It's just trying to further them into action because they may be short-sighted. But really, to be honest, the Taliban isn't the Taliban that led us there in the first place. They're kind of staying to themselves a little bit and actually focusing on government, which is just kind of funny because they went from being terrorists to actually having to govern Afghanistan, and people started to make news articles in Afghanistan about like actual terrorists that were like, man, being a terrorist was so much fun. Like, you know, like getting to like kill our own people and fight Americans and stuff. And now we're having to sit in a government office and do paperwork all day. This sucks. It's like, yeah, that's what it gets you. It's like when you end up winning, guess what? Governance comes with it. Have fun administrating. But anyways, they are anti-American, but I don't really know if they would act out because it seems like they're really going to become isolationist and focus on themselves, or maybe have a little bit of relations with China. And also, what's up with that Hotan prefecture here? What's up with this? What is up with this? No pictures? Probably because it's in Western China. They don't want you to see the summer camps. But let's see here. Where in the world? Yeah, this is Western China. This is where the Uyghurs are. Where the hell? So wait a minute. Is there no Google views out here at all? There's like none. What about this one? Ah, yes. The camps.
Oh.
Let's see. Is that a power plant? Yeah, that's a power plant. I don't know what the hell this is, though. You just got a bunch of folks out here playing. Is this basketball? Oh, they're playing basketball. I forgot basketball is really popular in China. And then also, it looks like they're building new developments, although it really does look like a camp, no lie. But anyways, with that, Western China ain't looking that hot. I'm not going to lie. What in the world does Eastern China look like? They don't allow squat. It's in China. Like, good luck. Let's see what we got here. Come on.
Nothing. It's just hell.
Oh.
Oh.
It looks like it would be cool if it was more pixels. Ah, well. Anyways, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we're on to the next one.
So our next question here goes to Barry Woodward, who says, I hear a Russian sub is on our backdoor stoop. And they will be in about a week or so. We'll have a Russian sub down near Cuba. But they're not planning on really doing anything except for drills. So, you know, they're just passing by. And I'm sure they've passed by many times before, but this time they're just announcing it. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yes, that is true. We will have a Soviet fast attack sub just off the coast around Florida, but it's not going to be doing anything. It's just going to be kind of close nearby, and it's being publicized to kind of drum up a little bit of fear and pandemonium. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Mad Machine, who says, if Ukraine destroys at least 4 refineries a week, How long before the refineries that are in range of Ukraine drones or missiles are wiped out?
It would actually wouldn't take that long. It would probably take a couple of weeks to be able to knock all of them out at that rate. So not that long at all. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And let's see here. We have one now from Incognito who says, Matt, do you think Putin made a deal with Taliban saying you help us with Ukraine and we'll help you with Israel? Maybe. Honestly, though, I think the reason why Putin is really meeting with the Taliban is it's not like the Taliban are really anyone to ally with because they really don't have much. But of course, the Taliban does have access to all those weapons that the U.S. left behind when we left Afghanistan in a very big hurry. We left a lot of very good stuff behind. And even though we tried to scuttle a lot of it, or at least we say we tried to scuttle it, a lot of the stuff is still repairable or usable. And I'm sure that Putin is trying to get access to some of that equipment because he is hurting for equipment. So he's probably trying to negotiate with the Taliban for that. And I really don't know. Putin and them, they're already sided with Syria. So I don't know. They might have come to some type of agreement to help out with Israel, but I don't really know. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, they're probably trying to talk to the Taliban just to try and have a little bit of a united front against the West, but it's not going to be that big of a united front or one to really be concerned about because I don't really see anything coming out of the Taliban. The weapons that were left behind aren't really the most important. I mean, everyone in the world kind of knows how a Hellfire missile works at this point. It's not that big of a secret. That's why we sent them to Ukraine, because if one of them ended up being a dud, it's not like the Russians are really going to learn a lot out of it because largely everyone already knows it's kind of a little bit of an older missile at this point. And on top of that, it's not like they're a major military and economic power either. So I think they're just trying to do that little deal where they can go propaganda-wise and go, look, if Afghanistan is with us, America, you have lost, or something like that. It's going to be something stupid in the end. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And also, we have a super chat just came in. This one is from Steve Alexander, who puts in a 5,000 W. And thank you very much, Steve, for the 5,000 W. And he says, if a Hollywood exec asked you to write a TV show on the Ukraine war from Russian side, what style would you use? Blackadder, MASH, Hogan's Heroes?
I would probably end up using the Blackadder style. I think it was a funny one, at least in my opinion. So that would be the one I use. And I thank you so much for the support, Steve Alexander. But in all seriousness, that has been an idea that I actually thought would be kind of cool, is to see if we could write a script and possibly have a major movie studio try and move forward with that script about the war in Ukraine and make it a very realistic movie depicting the war. I mean, none of that Michael Bay crap, and I've got to be honest with y'all, I did not like the movie Civil War, at least the clips I've seen of it. It was, I don't know, I just didn't really like it. And I also didn't like the combat scenes because they were very unrealistic in how weapons were used, how weapon systems were used. I found it to be very fanciful. But beyond that, I would say that a very realistic depiction of war would be an interesting thing to see on the big screen these days. And not only that, also probably show a lot of people a Ukraine that they can empathize with, considering that it would really be showing them in movie form the realities of what's going on in Ukraine. In ways that you can't really film or show on the front lines. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much for the support, Steve. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Chris Elliott. And Chris says, why doesn't Zelenskyy just sign no NATO weapon placements in Ukraine? Because wouldn't that end the war?
I'm not understanding the question, man. Could you explain it in how you're understanding it?
So what Chris is saying is he's basically saying here that if Zelenskyy would tell the West, meaning the United States, that he doesn't want any NATO weapons in Ukrainian territory, and also I think he's trying to allude to that Ukraine drops their NATO bid, that would basically end the war. And in my opinion, that would definitely not end the war.
I don't think it would, because if they still get into NATO, but then they say no NATO weapons will be based there, there's nothing Russia can do in the future. Because if they attack NATO, then all of NATO responds. So then in, say, 3 years' time, Ukraine would go, okay, now Western weapons can be here. And there's nothing really the Russians could do unless if they wanted to go into a third world war and lose. So I would say that probably would not end the war. And it's something that the Russians probably would not even accept as an offer. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolutely incredible stream tonight with 8.9 thousand people on at the peak and 68,000 people having watched the stream before it ended. It has been a wonderful night. And I got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. We are entirely honored to have y'all all of y'all here every single night and get to have the privilege of covering the news for y'all. If y'all did enjoy, please make sure to subscribe, like, and comment because it really makes us happy and it makes us encouraged and inspired to keep this channel running. And thank you to everyone so much once again who has already hit that like button and has gotten us up to nearly 3,000 likes. And so with that, I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Leaf Spring Army. The Leaf Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks, and thank you all once again for another great stream. It was a very good one tonight. Almost 70,000 viewers already, which is crazy, and almost 3,000 likes. So huge thanks to everybody for that. And of course, we'll see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern and maybe midday for the short war summary. But recently, there hasn't been enough news to make them, but we're trying to get back to make them on the regular. So that is our goal. But with that, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava. We'll see you all tomorrow, and good night.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.